Chapter 2396. Why are all the famous people from the various continents heading to the northern continent? Yi Qing Luo asked in puzzlement. Peach was stunned. Her beautiful eyes widened. You don't know. What do I need to know? Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes in a daze. She had been in the northern continent for at least half a month. Had she missed any news? Northern Continent Qin U.S. Sex Sovereign's 50th birthday is 10 days later. Peach held her forehead and shook her head helplessly. This news has spread like wildfire in the entire northern continent. I thought you would know even if I didn't say it. Birthday? Yi Qing Luo wondered if it was too much of a coincidence. The moment she arrived in the northern continent, it wasn't the sovereign's birthday. It was the Miao tribe's holy maiden selection. Did it need to be so lively? Hearing the second half of Peach's sentence, Yi Qing Luo shook her head decisively. The entire northern continent is buzzing with news. I only know one thing. War Monarch is searching for me in the entire continent. They are all here to pay their respects to the sovereign and also to find out the current development situation of the northern continent. Peach's vision shot towards the direction of the main hall. Nowadays, there are many people from various external forces in Qin U.S. City. Just like what happened between Young Region Lord and East Lawn Region Lord, it will soon spread to their continent. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly widened, which means this face of mine, this identity, has once again become famous in the Nirvana realm? You can say that. Peach nodded with a certain look. Yi Qing Luo. Should she consider changing her face again? Peach suddenly bumped her arm and said with a mysterious smile, Speaking of which, young Lord Gu has a very good reputation in the Nirvana realm. He is graceful, gentle, and refined, and treats people sincerely. Anyone who sees him will have a good impression of him. He just saved you, and he even used such a cool and handsome appearance to save you. Don't you feel the slightest bit of affection? Yi Qing Luo's face turned white. Do you think, no matter how handsome he is, can he be more handsome than Ah Xian? Peach remained silent and shook her head. No. Then that's it. Yi Qing Luo expressed that after looking at Ah Xian for a long time, other men, no matter how they looked, were all trash. Only Ah Xian. It was just a faint smile. They could make her feel refreshed to the bone. But even if he isn't moved, he probably won't hate it either. It's hard to hate someone like that. Peach's finger pointed at Yi Qing Luo's slender brows. As long as you see young matriarch Gu, over here it will wrinkle into a ball. Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders. Indeed, Gu Jingyu had a noble and gentle temperament like that of a prince from head to toe. No one could hate him. This was where his charm lay. However, for some reason Yi Qing Luo somehow felt that something was amiss. Perhaps she was really used to Ah Xian's charm. As for other men, no matter what type they were, she was completely immune. In her eyes, other men were nothing more than two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. There was no difference. The two of them were talking. Suddenly, a clear and deep voice sounded in her ears. Miss, I apologize on behalf of Princess Ling Nua for her rudeness just now. I hope that Miss will not bother with her. Yi Qing Luo turned around immediately. She saw Gu Jingyu looking at her with a faint and warm smile. His face was full of sincerity. Chapter 2397. Gu Jingyu gazed at the young lady in front of him. He could feel that the young lady didn't like him. He was a little surprised. It could be said that, until now, although not everyone who had seen him would like him and get close to him for no reason. But at least they would absolutely not have any disgusted feelings towards him. Even in the Gufeng sect, the few brothers who were fighting for power had not ignited the flames of war on him. He was extremely confident in his own charisma. This was the first time he felt an unpleasant emotion from a young lady. Yi Qing Luo looked at him in the eye. After a long time, her eyes revealed a mocking gaze. Looks like Mister is very keen on being a hero to save the damsel in distress. Gu Jingyu was stunned and was suddenly enlightened. A glint of light flashed across his gentle eyes. His thin lips rose. Miss Observation is really meticulous. He had not expected that this young lady could actually tell that he didn't have any genuine feelings towards Lan Ling Nua or Xia Lingling, and he really didn't want to have too much involvement with them. But the two of them were the princess of the two continents. He couldn't spoil the relationship between the two continents. Yi Qing Luo's words was also reminding him. If he really didn't want to have too much involvement with the two of them, then don't self-righteously apologize for the two of them. Otherwise, the two of them might think that he lowered his head and apologized to her because of them, which would only make Lan Ling Nua even more entangled. Of course, Yi Qing Luo wasn't reminding Gu Jingyu out of kindness. If Gu Jingyu didn't understand the meaning of her words, or perhaps Gu Jingyu actually liked to make use of the young lady's affection towards him to achieve his motive, Yi Qing Luo wouldn't bother about it. The two of them called me brother, so I naturally apologized to you as their brother. Gu Jingyu's eyes were like gurgling warm water, seeping into one's heart bit by bit. He glanced sideways at Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling beside him and spoke in a warm voice. Miss, after all, it's soon Qingyue Sec's sovereign's 50th birthday. Perhaps you have nothing to fear if you make a move here, but later on, your friend's painstaking establishment here will definitely be affected. He glanced meaningfully at the direction of Peach. Yi Qing Luo's smile stiffened slightly. She had to admit, Gu Jingyu had poked her soft spot. Indeed, after all, Lan Ling Nua was here to attend the 50th birthday of the Qingyue Sec's sect master. Xia Lingling was the little princess of the Northern Wave continent after all. She was fearless. However, the restaurants that Peach had painstakingly established in the Northern Wave continent, as well as the informants that she had sent out to gather information, would all be affected. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she nodded lightly. That's true. Many thanks for Master's reminder. Then, will Master please let the two princesses make up for today's loss to the Peach Blossom restaurant, and I will be merciful enough to forgive you. Hey, you bitch. Hearing this, Xia Lingling roared in anger. Just as he opened his mouth, he met with Yi Qing Luo's expression, which seemed like a smile yet not a smile. Xia Lingling immediately felt a chill down her spine as she thought of the slap she had given her. He forced the insulting words back into his throat. What right do you have to ask us for compensation? This is clearly your... Me? Yi Qing Luo interrupted Xia Lingling's words with a smile. If it wasn't for Little Region Princess creating trouble for no reason at the Peach Blossom restaurant, bullying the commoners and smashing through the main hall and backyard's doors. If it wasn't for Little Region Princess seeking justice for Little Prince, insulting me over and over again. If it wasn't for Little Region Princess dragging East Lawn Princess to make a move on me. Chapter 2398. Xia Lingling was so choked by these questions that she couldn't say a word for a long time. Lan Ling Nua's expression darkened, and she was about to speak. Gu Jingyu's gentle gaze swept over her. This young lady is right. The two of you do have to shoulder this responsibility. Don't let others laugh at you. Even Gu Jingyu said so. Lan Ling Nua did not dare to retort. The two of them looked at each other, feeling wronged. Soon after, they pursed their lips and weakly replied, "We understand." Gu Jingyu's eyes revealed a look of admiration. He nodded at the two of them and said, "It is the greatest virtue to know your mistakes and correct them. Don't be willful in the future." He was praised by Gu Jingyu. The displeasure in Lan Ling Nua's heart was instantly swept away. Xia Lingling was displeased. However, he was pulled by Lan Ling Nua, and he could not defeat that slut, so he could only suppress the fury in his heart and walk to Miao Zhengwei's side, who was being simply bandaged by the guards. Miao Zhengwei was initially ignored. The light that had just saved Xia Lingling was taken away by Gu Jingyu. He was furious. He saw Xia Lingling walking towards him. He immediately adjusted the expression on his face. Little commandery princess. Big brother Wei. Xia Lingling saw Miao Jingwei's doting expression and couldn't help but feel wronged. She hugged Miao Jingwei's arm. Miao Jingwei sighed as if he was distressed. Xia Lingling buried her head in his shoulder and whispered, Big brother Wei, don't worry. I definitely won't let this go. That bitch dared to injure you. I will definitely avenge you. Since we've come to an agreement, I'd like to ask the troublemakers to scram as far away as possible. Don't affect the restaurant's business. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand immodestly and turned towards the young man. Let's go. Sister will bring you to apply the medicine. The young man looked around in fear. Yi Qing Luo's hand had already grabbed onto his wrist. The young man was startled. A green light flashed in his eyes. Those tiny hands. It was extremely warm and soft. It actually made him feel inexplicably at ease, and he wanted to trust her. This was a feeling he had never felt before. Yi Qing Luo had just pulled the young man a few steps. A man's deep and gentle voice immediately came from behind her. Miss, I am the South Billow Continent's Wind Valley Sex-Young, Sect Master Gu Jingyu. Can Miss tell me your name? Yi Qing Luo halted her footsteps and lightly spat out 2 words. Yi Luo. Yi Luo. Gu Jingyu murmured these 2 words as a warm smile appeared on his face. Miss Yi, it's nice to meet you. That smile was indeed as gentle as the wind. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled faintly and nodded her head. Yes, I'm very happy. Saying that, Yi Qing Luo had already pulled the young man and turned a corner, leaving the crowd's line of sight. Peach retracted her gaze and shifted it to Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu was staring at Yi Qing Luo's departing back view without blinking, as his eyes were in a trance, not knowing what he was thinking about. Young Master Gu, Maya Luo has already left. Why are you still staring at him? Could it be? Taozi looked at Gu Jingyu with a teasing smile. Gu Jingyu's gaze drifted away as 2 bundles of red appeared on his face. Miss Tao has misunderstood. I'm just what? Taozi's brows rose as her smile became even more ambiguous. Gu Jingyu explained with some anxiety. I'm just admiring a lady like Miss Yi. If I can become close friends with such a lady, it would definitely be very interesting. Chapter 2399. Gu Jingyu felt uneasy from Peach's laughter. His gentle brows flashed past a sliver of awkwardness and unnaturalness. His long lashes fluttered rapidly. This made one couldn't bear to tease him like this. Taozi put away her playful smile and glanced at the 2 princesses behind him, whose faces were full of bitterness and hatred. Young Master Gu, you'd better send these 2 princesses back to the palace first. Gu Jingyu looked at the direction where Yi Qing Luo had left as his thin lips moved, as though he wanted to say something. Lan Ling Nua, who was behind him, had already pursed her lips tightly as she spoke in an unhappy, coquettish voice. Brother Gu, let's go. Second young Master Miao's injuries cannot wait any longer. Lan Ling Nua had always been good at observing men's expressions, guessing what the man was thinking about. She naturally could tell. Gu Jingyu was probably interested in that lady called Yi Luo. That was not just so-called admiration. Moreover, quite a number of admirers started from admiration. She had liked Gu Jingyu for so many years, and for Gu Jingyu, she had rejected so many outstanding men who were devoted to her. She absolutely could not let Gu Jingyu fall in love with anyone other than her. She wanted to strangle Gu Jingyu's admiration towards Yi Luo in the cradle. On the other side, Yi Qing Luo led the young man back to the basement which she had been staying in for the past few days. This was Peach Blossom 3000's secret base in Northern Continent. From the moment the young man entered the basement, the pair of bright eyes unconsciously widened as he looked left and right in disbelief. It was as though this basement to him was extremely novel. After passing through several layers of mechanisms, Yi Qing Luo led him to a bedroom door and stopped. She knocked on the room door. A slight noise was heard from inside the room, and very quickly someone came over to open the door. The person in the room was Miao Yi. On seeing Yi Qing Luo, her quick-witted eyes lit up. "Sister Luo, you're back." Miao Yi's words had just ended. Her body was pushed away violently. A black figure suddenly scuttled into Yi Qing Luo's arms. A furry little head rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's arms. "Sister, Kitty missed you so much." Yi Qing Luo rubbed Kitty Li's little head. "Let this girl stay in the bedroom and wait for me." It was really hard on her, an active kitten. Miao Yi was pushed by Kitty Li and fell to the side. "Be careful." The youth behind him immediately reached out to support him. Both of them fell to the ground. Fortunately, neither of them were injured. Kitty Li realized that she had caused trouble. She scratched her head and stuck out her tongue at the two of them guiltily. Little brother, I'm sorry. I didn't, miss." Suddenly, the young man shouted in shock, interrupting Kitty Li's apology. The young man's hands were placed on Miao Yi's shoulders. His eyes were wide open, and his entire body was tensed up due to his agitation. His eyes were filled with shock and joy. Miao Yi was stunned at first, but when she saw the youth's face, her expression froze for a moment. "Miss, why are you here?" "I've been looking for you," the young man chattered excitedly. However, the look in Miao Yi's eyes forced him to stop speaking. Yi Qing Luo took a panoramic view of their expressions. She raised her brows slightly as she thoughtfully swept a glance at the both of them. "You two know each other?" Furthermore, their relationship was apparently extraordinary. Chapter 2400. Looking at Miao Yi's flustered expression, Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as her gaze wandered back and forth between her and the young man with interest. This blatant gaze, it made Miao Yi's hair stand on end. She lowered her eyelids as her gaze avoided Yi Qing Luo's eyes. The young man also stood up at this moment. A pair of bright eyes stared at Miao Yi without blinking. Kitty Li also laid quietly beside Yi Qing Luo as she looked at the both of them in puzzlement. The scene became awkward bit by bit. After some time, Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze as she walked into the bedroom. "Kitty Li, take out the first aid box. He's injured and needs some treatment." Kitty Li responded and skipped over to the side to take the first aid box. When the two of them heard that, they heaved a sigh of relief. Miao Yi looked at Yi Qing Luo's back as her eyes flashed with a trace of struggle. But in the end, she still shut her eyes tightly. The two hands hanging by her side clenched into fists. It was until Kitty Li brought the first aid box over when Miao Yi stretched out her hand and took the first aid box. "Let me do it." Miao Yi took the first aid box as she walked towards the young man. "Sit over there." The young man opened his mouth, but eventually didn't say anything. He remained silent as he walked to the chair, which Miao Yi pointed at, and sat down. He allowed Miao Yi to tear his clothes. The injuries on the young man were mostly superficial wounds, and there were quite a number of blood stains. After seeing those scars, Miao Yi's fingers trembled slightly. "Who injured you?" Miao Yi pursed her lips as she carefully and gently wiped the young man's wounds. If one listened carefully, one could even hear the slight tremble in Miao Yi's tone. "No one, it's me." The young man frowned, slightly in pain, but he was afraid that Miao Yi would be worried, so he didn't make a sound. "Miao Zhengwei Xia Lingling." Yi Qing Luo calmly spat out two names. "I've returned half of his injuries to the two of them. The remaining half, you can get it yourselves." Miao Yi's hand paused slightly. Her eyes drooped downwards. Her fine long hair covered half of her face. Indistinctly, one could see her reddened eyes. "Thank you," Miao Yi said after a long time. Yi Qing Luo smiled and stretched out her hand towards Kitty Li. "Kitty Li, let's go. Sister will bring you out to shop." Kitty Li's eyes lit up and she pounced over. "Can we really go shopping?" "The Battle King's mansion has already withdrawn their search for me. so we can openly wander around. Yi Qing Luo hugged Kitty Li and brought her out of the room. That, Miao Yi suddenly spoke in a low voice. Yi Qing Luo's footsteps halted slightly. Miao Yi's eyes reddened as she looked at the young man's wounds. She looked down and a tear rolled down from the corner of her eye. She said again, "Thank you. Take good care of him." Yi Qing Luo smiled sweetly. Yi Qing Luo knew that Miao Yi's first sentence of "thank you" was to thank her for saving this young man and avenging him. As for the second "thank you," he was thanking her for not forcing her to reveal her relationship with the young man. "Sister, Yi Luo." The young man's slightly hoarse voice called out Yi Qing Luo's name. He raised his head, and there was a faint green glow in his bright and clear eyes. He said sincerely, "Sister Yi Luo, my name is Xian Gui. I will definitely repay sister." Yi Qing Luo gave the both of them a brilliant and gentle smile. "I'll wait for you." Saying that, she pulled Kitty Li out of the bedroom. Chapter 2401. Kitty Li, who had been locked up for a few days, was finally able to walk on the streets openly. Kitty Li was extremely excited. Carrying the tiny Shiju, she scurried left and right. Looking at Kitty Li's lively figure, Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a faint smile. This was the vigor that a young lady should have. The surrounding people, because of the search by the Battle Prince's mansion, they were extremely curious about Yi Qing Luo. Seeing Yi Qing Luo walking on the streets, the commoners started to point fingers. But no one dared to step forward and disturb this mysterious lady, who made the Battle Prince's mansion search and withdraw the search. She circled around Qingyue City for about half a round. Kitty Li was still excitedly wandering in front of every stall. Yi Qing Luo followed behind, strolling leisurely. Suddenly, her ears moved slightly. A trace of a meaningful smile flashed past her brows. Her peripheral vision seemed to inadvertently sweep behind her. Then she saw a few people in twos and threes, intentionally or unintentionally following behind her. The smile on her pink lips became thicker. The other party looked like they couldn't hold it in. Not sure if they were from the Battle Prince's mansion or the Miao tribe. Yi Qing Luo pretended not to discover that she was being followed. She slowly walked to Kitty Li's side, rubbed her little head, tired. Not tired. Kitty Li's body was already hung with a few toys, and her hands were holding several snacks. Even little Shiju, who was lying on Kitty Li's shoulder, was holding a candied haw with both claws, licking it vigorously. These two beasts looked like they hadn't sensed that someone was following them. "Even if you're not tired, you can't play anymore. Come again tomorrow," Yi Qing Luo said softly. Kitty Li's bright eyes dimmed slightly. She pouted her lips, lowered her head unhappily. Kitty Li still wants to continue shopping. It's getting late. If Xiao Wu Wu comes back and finds that we're not around, she will definitely be worried about us. Yi Qing Luo hooked Kitty Li's shoulder. There's still some trouble to settle. Kitty Li blinked her round, beautiful eyes. Suddenly hearing the latter half of Yi Qing Luo's sentence, her eyes widened in sudden realization. Soon after, she angrily clenched her little paws and muttered, "A bunch of idiots! How dare they disturb big sisters shopping with Kitty? Kitty will scratch them to death." The two of them left the bustling street, one after another. During this period of time, Yi Qing Luo had been cooped up in the basement of Peach Blossom Restaurant. He wasn't very clear about the route to Qingyue City. To draw out their stalker, he had to find a quiet place. Furthermore, if they were in Qingyue City, once he made a move, he would probably alert the enemy. He wanted to find out from these people who were following him which side they were from. He couldn't do anything in Qingyue City. Yi Qing Luo brought the kitten along with her. On the surface, she appeared to be calm and collected as they discussed the little girl's topics with each other. He walked towards a secluded and quiet place. After walking for about half an hour, the two of them had already walked out of Joy City. After leaving Joy City, they walked for another half an hour. In front of them was a small path in the forest. As far as the eye could see, it was densely packed with messy bamboos and various kinds of trees. Yi Ching, Luo, and Kitty Li looked at each other and stepped into the forest. The moment they stepped into the forest, Yi Ching Luo felt a strong murderous intent spreading throughout the entire forest. It looked like those people following them couldn't wait any longer. As expected, the next moment, more than 10 black figures surrounded them from all directions. Chapter 2402. These 10 over black-robed men's abilities were all around the earth-profound realm. Yi Ching Luo swiftly retreated a few steps. Her gaze swept across the surrounding 10 over black-robed men. From their dressing, Yi Ching Luo couldn't tell if they were from the Battle King's manor or the Miao tribe. But Yi Ching Luo knew, in order to kill her or capture her, the other party had really put in a lot of effort. If it was anyone else, these 10 over earth, profound, realm black, robed men made their move. Who else would be able to escape? Seeing Yi Ching Luo evading their attacks, the other 10 over black, robed men swiftly pounced forward. Momentarily, the entire forest shook violently. A strong gust of wind blew and leaves fluttered. Indistinctly, there were mournful cries. In just a moment, the forest gradually regained its original quietness. The powerful Xian waves in the surroundings also gradually subsided. Yi Ching Luo dusted her hands and stepped on one of the black-robed men. Kitty Li bent down and forcefully tore off the mask of one of the black-robed men. That black-robed man's face was filled with bloody scratches. This was Kitty Li's masterpiece, who asked these baddies to disturb her and her sister's interest in shopping. If it weren't for them, she would still be happily shopping with her elder sister. She didn't scratch them to death. That was considered as showing mercy. Yi Ching Luo lifted her leg and kicked the black-robed man. The black-clothed man who attacked her earlier dropped a token. Kitty Li immediately picked up that token. On the token, there was a huge symbol, battle. Assassins sent by the Battle King's manor? Although the 10 over black-robed men were brutally tortured by Yi Ching Luo, they were unable to resist. But their imposing manner had not diminished. A pair of vengeful eyes seemed to be telling her that they would rather die than submit. Yi Ching Luo's brows rose as she nodded in understanding. You are the soldiers under General Battle King. Only soldiers had such an unyielding spirit. Those black-robed men were slightly stunned, as though they didn't expect Yi Ching Luo to see through their identities. Very quickly, one of the black-robed men shouted sternly, "We have nothing to do with the general. Kill us if you want, but don't casually give us identities." Yi Ching Luo couldn't help but laughed out when she heard that. This black-clothed man must be joking, right? Denying the relationship. Was there anyone who would deny it with such a straight face? That general, wasn't it a blatant admission that he was a soldier of the War King General? Calling off the search for me, then sending his own soldiers to hunt me down. This is the War King's goal. Yi Ching Luo raised her brows, but just based on these small fries, you won't be able to satisfy me, I think. It's better to let the Battle King do it himself. You, the black-clothed men, looked ferocious. Some of them were so angry that they coughed violently. They had their own pride and self-respect. His skills were inferior, and he was tortured by a young girl. It was already the most shameful thing in their lives. And now he was even insulted by that young lady. Kill us if you dare. Judging from your young age, I'm afraid you haven't seen a dead person before. What's wrong? You're just talking big? Kill us. The black-robed men flew into a rage out of humiliation and ridiculed Yi Ching Luo. They didn't believe that this innocent and harmless-looking young lady dared to kill them. Sister, why would anyone want to die so badly? Kitty Li looked strangely at those black-robed men and asked, Chapter 2403. Then should we grant them their wish? Kitty Li blinked her eyes, Since they want to die so badly, and your sister is such a kind person, naturally we should grant them their wish." Yi Qing Luo smiled as she looked at the black-robed men lying on the ground. "Don't say I didn't give you a chance to live. It's you who strongly requested to die." The black-robed men revealed their disdain. They couldn't believe that this beautiful girl, who was only 14 or 15 years old, would dare to kill more than a dozen men like them. Moreover, the young lady wanted to kill them. That would depend on whether she still had the chance. Just at this moment, a rustling sound was heard from the bushes in the forest. Yi Qing Luo was on high alert as her gaze swept across the surroundings. The dense grass swayed nonstop, and the rustling sound was getting closer and closer. There was something in the bushes. One of the black-robed men heard the sound. His face immediately revealed a complacent expression. Yi Qing Luo's heart jumped and immediately released her perception. This group of black-robed men still had a backup plan. This was really a big move. From the looks of it, the War King was determined to make her surrender. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as a cold glint flashed past her eyes. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Rustle, rustle, rustle. After a while in the rustling sound, she saw one after another poisonous snakes spitting out blood with their scarlet tongues scurrying out. Densely packed poisonous snakes, some were huge, some were small. They were entangled together and wriggling continuously. This scene, even Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but felt her scalp go numb. The poisonous snakes directly ignored those black-robed men lying on the ground and rushed towards Yi Qing Luo one by one. Very quickly, with Yi Qing Luo as the center, they surrounded her from all directions. The scarlet tongues made a hissing sound. "Ha ha ha, young lady, you're still too inexperienced." The black-robed men saw the poisonous snakes had surrounded Yi Qing Luo and Kitty Li. They also forced themselves to stand up. It was all thanks to these two ignorant young ladies. They didn't choose any place. They just had to come to this deserted forest, just right for them, to have the chance to attract the poisonous snakes. Battle King had said that this young lady was very sinister and cunning. Moreover, he was an expert in using poison. Naturally, they would have two backup plans. "Snake, there are so many snakes, sister." Kitty Li couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over her body when she saw the coiled snakes. Kitty Li was not afraid of snakes. However, it was too disgusting to face so many snakes. Yi Qing Luo's expression congealed slightly as a cold glint shot out from her charming eyes. "Don't move!" Kitty Li shrunk beside Yi Qing Luo as her sparkling eyes stared vigilantly at those venomous snakes. "Ha ha ha! Little girl, do you think that if you don't move, these poisonous snakes won't attack you? No matter how strong you are, what can you do in the face of thousands of poisonous snakes?" A man in black rubbed his chest and stood up shakily. Kitty Li grabbed Yi Qing Luo's arm as she pursed her lips tightly. "Sister, why they weren't affected by the venomous snakes." Not only was he not affected by the venomous snake, the venomous snakes had bypassed the men in black and were creeping towards them one after another. They have purposely brought scented sachets to ward off poisonous snakes. No wonder Yi Qing Luo had always felt that there was a strange smell on those black-robed men. Presumably, it was to disperse these venomous snakes. She chose this forest. It was to prevent alerting the snakes. Chapter 2404. Kitty Li's eyes widened. "Then what should we do?" Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her gaze swept past those 10 over black-robed men. He was deep in thought. It was not realistic to kill these poisonous snakes. After all, there were at least a few thousand of them in front of him. If he made a move, these venomous snakes would definitely gang up on him. Yi Qing Luo was not afraid of the venom. However, it didn't mean that Kitty Li wasn't afraid. Moreover, these thousands of snakes all had different poisons. If he was corroded by the venom, She was also unable to find the corresponding antidote in the shortest time possible. He couldn't take that risk. Little girl, you still want to struggle. The black-robed men looked at the two young ladies who were surrounded by the venomous snakes. Earlier, they who had their pride abused by Yi Qing Luo finally had the feeling of exaltation. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, like a poisonous snake's eyes, staring at those black-robed men without blinking. The corners of her mouth curled up into an extremely enchanting cold arc. This smile, the black-clothed men felt their hairs stand on end. You can't wait to kill me? The War King is rather impatient. Yi Qing Luo smiled calmly. But if I were to die, then no one would be able to cure eldest young Miss Meow's poison. Eldest young Miss Meow? The black-robed men were stunned, not understanding why Yi Qing Luo would drag Meow Rongrong into this. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. You still don't know? Your family's little prince was poisoned. Miss Meow used a goo worm to cure the little prince, but she was infected with the residual poison. That was to say, Miss Meow was poisoned because of the young prince. If young Miss Meow's poison flared up, they would definitely blame it on the Battle King's mansion. The black-robed men understood the meaning behind Yi Qing Luo's words. They frowned slightly. Stop spouting nonsense. These poisonous snakes are not under our control. No matter how glib your tongue is today, as long as we bring your corpse back, our mission will be completed. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The IQ of these people, she really did not want to complain anymore. It was already a miracle that he could survive until now on the battlefield. Now Yi Qing Luo was completely certain. These people were sent by the War King's mansion. Moreover, from the looks of it, the Battle King General was determined to kill her to avenge Yuan Kuang. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the surrounding venomous snakes as her gaze swiftly swept across the surrounding terrain. If he wanted to use the terrain to deal with these venomous snakes, Yi Qing Luo took a look at Kitty Li beside her. Her fingers tightened. Let Kitty Li escape from the venomous snakes first. With a flick of her fingers, a feather fan that looked like a blazing flame appeared at her fingertips. Sister! Kitty Li cried out in shock when she saw Yi Qing Luo taking out the glower flame fan. He came to the northern wave continent in order to conceal his identity. Yi Qing Luo had kept the glower flame fan all along. After all, the symbol of the red feather fan was too obvious. Do you still remember the footwork that sister taught you? Yi Qing Luo lowered her voice and asked. Kitty Li seemed to have reacted to Yi Qing Luo's plan as she hurriedly shook her head. I can't let sister deal with those poisonous snakes alone. I'm not afraid of snakes. The venom of these snakes doesn't work on me, but it doesn't mean that it won't work on you. Leave this place first. Only then can I go all out. Yi Qing Luo rubbed her little head. Be good. Trust me. Kitty Li wanted to say something, but seeing Yi Qing Luo's resolute gaze and unquestionable tone, she swallowed her words back and spat out 4 words, I know. Asterisk. Chapter 2405. Yi Qing Luo's fingertips moved as the glower flame fan in her hands opened up. A burst of majestic, profound energy was unleashed from her body. This powerful, profound energy, it made those black-robed men's expressions change drastically. Thousands of poisonous snakes, under this powerful atmosphere, wriggled restlessly. Several poisonous snakes flicked their scarlet tongues, as though they were preparing to attack Yi Qing Luo together. Suddenly, a green figure swept past. A thick palm pressed on Yi Qing Luo's wrist, which was holding the glower flame fan, forcefully forcing back all her profound energy. Yi Qing Luo was shocked. That man had already thrown something towards the direction of the poisonous snakes. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The poisonous snakes suddenly twisted in extreme pain as they kept on wriggling. After a while, as though they were escaping for their lives, they scuttled towards the surrounding bushes, leaving this place. In just a moment, The forest full of venomous snakes and murderous aura a moment ago was now completely empty. The black-robed men were stunned. Yi Qing Luo was also stunned. She stared blankly at that figure who was blocking in front of her. Why did it feel? This scene was a little familiar. Yi Qing Luo blinked as she regained her senses. Master Gu! This person wasn't anyone else. It was the young matriarch of Gufeng's sect, whom she met in the Peach Blossom restaurant in the afternoon, Gu Jingyu. In the afternoon, when she and Yu Ji were battling. It was also Gu Jingyu who blocked in front of her. How long had it been? It was him again, blocking in front of her. History was always shockingly similar. She was saved by Gu Jingyu again. This time she owed a favor. Gu Jingyu turned his head back, as his eyes revealed a sliver of astonishment. Miss Yi? How did you? He looked at those 10 over black-robed men. As he nodded in understanding, you are being pursued? Yi Qing Luo looked at those 10 over black-robed men as she shrugged her shoulders. Very obvious. Need help? Gu Jingyu's gentle lips curled into a smile, as his gaze was gentle like water as he looked at Yi Qing Luo's face. His voice was very soft, but in his tone there was a trace of unintelligible treachery. But Yi Qing Luo caught it. She frowned slightly as she raised her head to meet Gu Jingyu's eyes. Was he angry because of her? However, she was even more certain that this seemingly gentle man was definitely not as gentle as he appeared on the surface. Yi Qing Luo concealed the deep thoughts in her eyes as she gave a slight smile. These dregs, it's not worthwhile for you to make a move. She did not want to owe Gu Jingyu a third favor. Jun Qinggu had already gone to the upper realm to inform DMO Xian about the situation in the North Continent. Xian would be back soon. If Xian knew that she owed a man 2 favors, he reckoned that the vinegar jar was about to flip over. Without waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak, Yi Qing Luo had already walked directly towards those 10 over black-robed men. As she walked, she kept the devouring flame fanned back into the profound phoenix ring. He casually took out a long whip. 10 over black-robed men suddenly regained their senses as their eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo in shock. What was going on? Wasn't this little girl swallowed by the poisonous snake? Why did it become like this now? The 10 over black-robed men recalled the burst of profound energy which was released from Yi Qing Luo earlier. Instantly, there was a wave of fear in their hearts. But Yi Qing Luo's face was filled with fear as her pink lips rose slightly, like a poppy, blooming with a suffocating charm. Now, it's my turn to fulfill your wishes. 10 over black-robed men's pupils contracted, thinking of the clamor earlier when they were certain that Yi Qing Luo didn't dare to kill anyone. Looking at the current Yi Qing Luo, who was filled with murderous intent, her eyes icy cold. Their spines instantly turned cold. Chapter 2406. Aren't all of you seeking death? Why do you want to be a stray dog now? Yi Qing Luo smiled as she gazed at those fleeing figures. Her frosty eyes were filled with a chilly glint. Her fingers moved. The long whip in her hand was like a poisonous snake as it swiftly coiled around them. No one could tell how she made her move. And what did she do? By the time everyone regained their senses, those 10 over black-robed men were trapped in the long whip. They were totally immobilized. The 10 over black-robed men's pupils dilated as they stared at Yi Qing Luo in horror. They couldn't react at all. They were so easily trapped by Yi Qing Luo without any chance to resist. Moreover, it was just a long whip. Trapping over 10 of them? Don't worry, I won't let you die in the wilderness. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. Her long curly lashes were overflowing with color, shining with an intoxicating luster. The 10 over black-robed men heard that, and the fear on their faces grew thicker. Yi Qing Luo laughed softly. Her fingers tightened as she quickly pulled those 10 over black-robed men in front of her. Yi Qing Luo's face was still that innocent and sweet smile. However, His eyes were calm without a single ripple. Ah! A series of miserable shrieks resounded in the air above the forest. Very quickly it returned to peace. Yi Qing Luo casually threw the long whip in her hand. "Kitty!" Yi Qing Luo called out softly. Kitty Li hopped forward and held Yi Qing Luo's arm. "Hang these corpses at the main entrance of the Battle King's residence. The more obvious the better. The more sensational the better." Yi Qing Luo's voice was very calm, as though she was talking about a very ordinary topic. Originally, Yi Qing Luo had no intention to kill these black-robed men. But if they didn't offend her, she naturally wouldn't offend them. These black-robed men wanted her life. Then they shouldn't blame her for being merciless and taking their lives. And, General Battle King. She would slowly settle it with him bit by bit. This scene was witnessed by Gu Jingyu. His gaze was deep and gentle as he stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking, as though he wanted to see through her body and see her soul. It was so deep, so sincere. Gu Jingyu couldn't deny it. He had already been completely bewitched by this girl, who could barely be considered delicate and pretty. Obviously, most of the women he had seen were many times more beautiful than her. But this seemingly elegant young girl, however, it had a unique charm. He looked at the lifeless corpses that fell to the ground one by one. He then looked at the young girl who was standing beside the corpse and talking to the cute little girl calmly. His heart inexplicably tightened. It was as if some kind of emotion was gradually spreading. The girl in his eyes. Her clothes were simple but elegant. Her looks were barely elegant and pleasing to the eye. However, it was evil like a blooming poppy flower. He continued to exude a suffocating charm. It captivated and moved one's soul. It was until Yi Qing Luo finished instructing Kitty Li and walked towards Gu Jingyu. Only then did Gu Jingyu manage to regain his senses. What did you just say?" Gu Jingyu looked at Yi Qing Luo in a daze. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as she glanced at the ground full of corpses. "Don't tell me you were frightened by these corpses." Chapter 2407. This looked like a pure and innocent young master. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly. "What's there to be surprised about?" "Surprised that I will kill people." It seemed that those black-robed men also thought that she didn't dare to kill them. She looked like a young lady who had no strength to truss a chicken. Gu Jingyu's blush turned even redder, as though his inner thoughts were exposed. Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's expression as she smiled faintly. She raised her head and looked at the azure sky through the dense trees. She smiled faintly. In this place where the strong are revered, where human lives are treated as grass, the only way to survive is to go out and block the enemy in front of you. Gu Jingyu was stunned as he looked at her in astonishment. Yi Qing Luo continued to smile. "I'm not a saint, I'm a human, and I will be selfish, and I don't want to die. Since I don't want to die, then in order to survive, my enemy can only die. So, killing people to me is very normal. No matter if it was her past life or this life, killing people to her was as normal as eating a meal. She respected every life, and also respected every choice. If it wasn't for the fact that they offended her, if it wasn't for the fact that they wanted her life, she wouldn't bother about it. But if the other party chose to be her enemy and wanted her life, or it might affect the future of the people around her, then she would not hesitate to take action. She couldn't do it to sacrifice her life for unimportant people." Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, Gu Jingyu was stunned momentarily. After some time, the gaze he used to look at Yi Qing Luo was filled with some heartache and connection, a light voice with some illusory emptiness. "You must have suffered a lot." For a young lady to say such words, he must have experienced a reign of terror and walked out of it. Otherwise, how is it possible for her to be so indifferent? Like just now, she killed 10 over black-robed men with her bare hands. There wasn't any change in her expression. It really seemed like something that couldn't be more normal. Yi Qing Luo met his heartache gaze and couldn't help but laughed out. Young Master Gu's words make me seem to be very pitiful. As for me, I've never felt that my past life was bad for me. She chuckled, her eyes indifferent. It's because of my past that I've developed a strong heart. It's also why I can survive in this place. When Gu Jingyu heard that, he looked at Yi Qing Luo's elegant face and finally smiled warmly. Young Miss is so open-minded. I've learned a lot. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand and took a look at Kitty Li, who was carrying Shiju and waiting for them to leave, as she brought up a topic. Right, Mr. Gu, why are you here? This place was half an hour's journey away from Qinghua City. She had purposely come here to lure the black-robed men. That Gu Jingyu, he mentioned the purpose of his visit. Gu Jingyu's expression suddenly froze. Oh no, I forgot all about it. I did it to save the Bu family village. Bu village? Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's solemn expression. I'll follow you to take a look. Gu Jingyu hesitated for a moment. It will be dangerous. No worries. Yi Qing Luo shook her head and smiled faintly. You're clear about my ability, so don't worry about me. That's not something that can be solved with profound energy. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips. He pondered for some time before he decided, all right, then remember to follow me closely. No matter what you see, don't be rash and act on your own. Chapter 2408. She followed Gu Jingyu to the Bu family village. There were two reasons. Firstly, she had to send Gu Jingyu away. Kitty Li and Shiju, who had reverted to its original form, moved those 10 over corpses. Earlier, the glower flame fan had been seen by Gu Jingyu. If there was another Shiju's original form, even an idiot would know her real identity. Secondly, Bu, this surname. Previously, when Shi and Yu Wenquang had their first conflict, it was Miao Yi's grandma, Bu, who helped her. Later on, she almost suffered from the revenge of the Battle King's residents. This Grandma Bu and the Bu family village, surely there wasn't any connection? Yi Qing Luo decided to take a look for herself. The Bu family village was not far from this forest. As long as they passed through this forest and walked for another 10 over kilometers, they would be able to see the Bu family village's sign. It was no wonder that Gu Jingyu would so coincidentally enter this forest. The two of them walked into the Bu family village one after another. This village looked extremely dilapidated and poor. As far as the eye could see, there were a few thatched huts. The slightly better ones were the wooden huts. There were about 10 over houses. The entire village probably wasn't as big as her garden in the old mansion. Moreover, the people in this village were mostly old people who were over 50 years old. Seeing some outsiders coming over, those old people all set their gazes on them curiously. Yi Qing Luo surveyed the surroundings. She didn't sense anything strange. Luckily, we arrived in time. Seeing the peace in the village, Gu Jingyu heaved a sigh of relief. He looked sideways at the young lady beside him, and his tone was obviously much more relaxed. Sorry for making you worried. We arrived in time. This village. Is something going to happen? Yi Qing Luo asked in puzzlement. Gu Jingyu only smiled. The two of them walked all the way to the end of the village. Only then did they stop. Tired? Gu Jingyu looked at Yi Qing Luo gently. Yi Qing Luo nodded. Gu Jingyu then started walking towards a wooden hut at the end of the village. This was a shed made of wood, and there were a few wooden tables and chairs. An old man was boiling water in front of the stove. Old Grandpa, can I have some water? Gu Jingyu asked gently and elegantly. The old man raised his head. It took a long time for his muddy eyes to see Gu Jingyu's face. He quickly revealed a kind smile and said, "Young man, sit down. The tea will be ready soon." Gu Jingyu expressed his thanks and turned his head towards Yi Qing Luo. Sit down and wait for a while. Yi Qing Luo didn't know what he was up to. She followed him to a nearby wooden table and sat down. Soon, the old man brought out the tea that he had brewed. Gu Jingyu sent a cup of tea to Yi Qing Luo's table. Drink some tea first and take a rest. Yi Qing Luo received the tea and politely thanked him. The cup was rough. However, the fragrance of the tea that wafted out was extremely rich and pleasant. The mist clouded her eyes. She took a sip of her tea. It was extremely mellow and the fragrance lingered in the mouth. She couldn't help but praise good tea. When the old man heard this, he chuckled and said, "It's good that you like it. Our village isn't good at other things, but our tea leaves are especially fragrant." The old man was very hospitable. Intentionally or unintentionally, Gu Jingyu wanted to find out the situation of the Bu family village from the old man's mouth. Very quickly they started chatting. Yi Qing Luo drank her tea, and Gu Jingyu would refill her tea from time to time. Chapter 2409. Young couple? Pray for children? What a big misunderstanding. This was a big misunderstanding. Yi Qing Luo quickly put down the teacup and explained seriously. "Old Grandpa, you've misunderstood. He and I are just ordinary friends, not. Young couple are still so shy. I'm experienced. I understand. The old man nodded with an "I understand" expression and smiled ambiguously. Yi Qing Luo wanted to cry, but no tears came out. This misunderstanding had to be explained clearly. She was a married woman. "Master Gu, you have to explain to old Grandpa. A woman's reputation is very important." Yi Qing Luo decisively asked Gu Jingyu for help. While Gu Jingyu was in a daze, the old man's words, "young couple," echoed in his ears. In his heart, there was an inexplicable feeling of satisfaction. Young couple was not bad. If he could become husband and wife with such a woman, he could let go and fight for his own ambition. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's cry for help, Gu Jingyu suddenly regained his senses and his gentle gaze met her eyes. It's hard to change the old man's mind. Explaining will only make things worse. You don't have to worry about it. Yi Qing Luo expressed that she cared, but it was indeed as Gu Jingyu said. The more she explained, the more excited the old man was that she and Gu Jingyu were a young couple. She was thinking of ways to convince the old man that she had nothing to do with Gu Jingyu. But she heard Gu Jingyu casually asked while drinking his tea, "I heard that this month no one went to the sacred spring to pray for children. Is it because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore?" The old man's smile suddenly froze. A trace of pain flashed past his muddy old eyes. Gu Jingyu immediately put down the teacup and apologized guiltily. "Sorry, old Grandpa. If I asked something inconvenient, just pretend I didn't say it. It's not inconvenient." The old man sighed heavily. "You will know sooner or later." He paused and put down the tray in his hand. This month there are indeed no young couples going to the sacred spring. Not because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore, but the Bu family village is not peaceful. To go to the sacred spring, you must pass through the Bu family village. But recently, there will always be a group of people who will come to the Bu family village to make trouble, plunder the resources of the village, and from time to time, they will kill the travelers or villagers who pass through the village. At this point, the old man's voice was choking. "Who is it? Plunder resources?" Yi Qing Luo suddenly put down the teacup. The Bu family village was inhabited by some old people. Other than tea leaves, what other resources could there be? He couldn't even feed himself anymore, and it had to be plundered by others? I don't know either. Those people are here to look for someone. They were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. If you don't hand over that person, then we'll come again. We'll rob and kill until everyone in the Bu family village is dead. The old man closed his eyes. During this period of time, those people have come more frequently. 2 young couples have already died under the blades of those people. So those young couples don't dare to go to the holy spring to pray for children anymore. Looking for someone? Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu shook his head. "After you too have finished your tea, immediately rush to the holy spring. Leave the village before those people come. then you won't have to worry about your lives." The old man put away his sorrowful emotions and revealed a kind smile. He chuckled and said, "You two are here to happily pray for a child. Don't listen to this old man's nonsense and let it affect your mood." The old man's smile seemed to sweep away all the haze. Chapter 24:10. Old Grandpa. Since those people frequently come to harass the village, why, haven't you left yet? Yi-Ching Luo looked around at those villagers who surrounded them in twos and threes. Perhaps this was the first time they had seen visitors. People with outstanding temperament like Yi-Ching Luo and Gu Jingyu. These people were all over 50 years old, and their clothes were extremely rough. Some were carrying hoes, some were carrying machetes, some were leaning on farming tools. Although they looked like they had been through hardships, but on everyone's faces, they all had a faint smile on their faces. It seemed to be happy that a guest had finally passed by the Bu family village. Yi-Ching Luo guessed. They probably thought that batch of people would not come again. So outsiders finally dared to head to the sacred spring to pray for children. Since this Bu family village was so dangerous, they were unable to hand over who those people were looking for. Why not leave this dangerous place directly? Leave. The old man laughed lightly. The young people have all left. Some went to Chinua City. Some went to other big cities. We old fellows. If we leave in future when those young people want to come back, they can't find a home, what should we do? Yi-Ching Luo's heart tightened. The expression in Gu Jingyu's eyes became gentler. "All right, you two. Hurry to the sacred spring. Don't waste any more time." The old man didn't want to say anything more as he picked up the tray, waved his hand, and returned to the stove. Yi-Ching Luo and Gu Jingyu looked at the tea in their cups, speechless. After some time, Gu Jingyu spoke warmly. "The old people in the Bu family village are very kind. This is the reason why I came here." "Do you know who that group of people are?" Yi-Ching Luo thought of Gu Jingyu's purpose of coming to the Bu family village. Could it be because of those people who were harassing them? "I'm not sure who they are, so I specially came to confirm." Gu Jingyu shook his head and answered truthfully. "After knowing who those people are, will you help the Bu family village or that group of people?" Yi-Ching Luo raised her eyes and looked straight at Gu Jingyu. "In your heart, what kind of person am I?" Gu Jingyu heard that, and a trace of sadness flashed past his gentle eyes. Yi-Ching Luo lowered her head silently. What kind of person was Gu Jingyu? She wasn't sure. The only thing she knew was that this man was not as kind as he seemed on the surface. Her silence. This caused the sadness in Gu Jingyu's eyes to become even thicker. He sighed and drank the tea in his cup. "If you want me to help the Bu family village, I will help the Bu family village. In that case, right from the start, you weren't here to help the Bu family village." Yi-Ching Luo understood the deeper meaning behind his words. However, he did not hear the flirtatious tone in Gu Jingyu's words. Even old man Song, who was within the azure dew bracelet, couldn't help but hold his forehead. Did this girl put all her EQ on Dizun the boy? She couldn't tell that Gu was flirting with her. Gu Jingyu's mood became increasingly gloomy. He felt somewhat defeated. When had he ever been ignored by a woman like this? Now, it was rare for him to have a woman that he wanted. But this woman was completely uninterested in him. The atmosphere between the two was a little strange. The surrounding villagers watched for a long time. The whispers began. Every time he sees this young couple, he thinks of his son and daughter-in-law. Chapter 24:11. His wife also went to the city to look for their son, but sigh. The villagers sighed regretfully. Elder T is too stubborn, staying in the Bu family village. Not only is his life in danger, he is also living and waiting every day. Why not? Go directly to the city. Chinua City is not far from here. Actually, it's better to go and see how his wife and son are doing in the city. Yi-Ching Luo frowned slightly when she heard those words. She got up and looked at those villagers. Grandpa's, you said. Elder T's son is in Chinua City? The villagers were stunned. They looked at Yi Ching Luo in panic. You? How did you hear us? They were whispering to each other, and their voices were clearly very soft. If it were ordinary people, those they were discussing, ordinary people indeed, couldn't hear them clearly. But Yi Ching Luo and Gu Jingyu were cultivators, and their cultivation was rather high. The villagers' words were naturally heard clearly. We came from Chinua City. Yi Ching Luo didn't answer the villagers' question, but said directly, if it's possible, we can help Elder T to look for his wife and son. The villagers looked at each other and stared at each other in bewilderment. No one spoke. The old man noticed the commotion over here and waved a huge cattail leaf fan at those villagers. What are you gossiping about again? Go away! Don't disturb the guests drinking their tea. Those villagers shook their heads helplessly, but still left the tea house. The old man smiled and waved the cattail leaf fan at Yi Ching Luo. Young lady, don't listen to their nonsense. Finish your tea and go to the sacred spring with your husband. Yi Ching Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. She wasn't a kind person, but she was a person with a heart. Losing news of her loved ones, and those robbers, time and time again, harassed the Bu family village, killing the villagers cruelly. But he couldn't leave, afraid that if he left, his loved ones would return and couldn't find him. The old grandpa's heart was actually more uncomfortable than anyone else, but he still had to consider their feelings, smiling benevolently. Elder T was really a very gentle old grandpa, so gentle that it made the usually emotionless her. He couldn't help but feel his heart ache. Old grandpa, it's going to be the Chinua sect leader's 50th birthday soon. The citizens of Chinua City have to stand on the streets to celebrate the sect leader's birthday. If you're looking for your son and wife, why don't you show us their portraits? We'll go back to Chinua City and help you look for them. Yi Ching Luo did not force Elder T to leave with her. However, since he already knew about this matter, if it was convenient for her to help, this matter could not be left unattended. The smile on Elder T's face froze. He seemed to be hesitating. To be more precise, he was afraid. What was there to be afraid of? He was afraid that his wife and son had not returned yet. What if fear is bad news? Or was he afraid that his son and wife would live in the city and not want an old man like him? No matter which one it was, even old-time T was afraid to find out. He would rather hold on to this hope and silently guard it. Yi Ching Luo didn't urge or force Elder T, only waiting for him to make his own choice. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Elder T finally heaved a heavy sigh. Forget it! There's no use guarding this false hope. I want to know what's their situation now. As long as they're safe, no matter what, I'll be at ease. Saying that, Elder T walked into the small wooden house with heavy footsteps. Chapter 24:12. The old man's gaze stared at the wooden box in his hand, filled with longing and longing. He walked in front of Yi Ching Luo, placing the wooden box on the wooden table. That wooden box looked exquisite and extremely clean. She could tell that the old man often flipped through this wooden box, the things in the wooden box. It was also the obsession that supported him till now. The old man's wrinkled hands trembled as he opened the wooden box. In the wooden box, there were a few small things, and there were 2 paintings. The old man picked up one of the paintings. His fingertips were trembling slightly. Yi Ching Luo didn't rush him, nor did she disturb him. After some time, the old man slowly placed the painting on the table. This is the only painting this old woman has. Before she went to the city to look for her son, a young couple who passed by drew the only painting for her. The old man's voice sounded choked. The yellowed painting slowly opened up. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the village. Those villagers who were called away by the old man earlier all ran back. Elder T! Quickly, keep the things. Those people are here again. The old man's hand, which was opening the painting, paused. The expression on his face turned extremely ugly. He abruptly kept the painting into the wooden box. Run, run, run. Why are you running? Haven't you learnt to be obedient? A rough voice was heard from afar. A group of people, about 40 to 50 people, majestically walked into the Booth family village. The few men who were walking in front were dressed in strange black clothing, short top, tight long pants, with a black belt embroidered with strange patterns on their waists, directly lifted their feet and kicked those villagers who ran over. These villagers were all ordinary people, and they were all old. After being kicked, they immediately fell onto the ground, screaming in pain, and were unable to move. Those men laughed loudly all the way to the tea house. Young people, find a chance to run. These people are not good people. Elder T looked at those people, as his face sunk, as he suppressed his voice. These people, were they the ones who robbed the Booth family village of resources and indiscriminately killed innocent people? Yi Ching Luo squinted her eyes as she took in these 40 to 50 people in a panoramic view. These people's clothing was strange, but extremely familiar, if she didn't remember wrongly. His attire was similar to that of the Miao tribe's patriarch that she had seen in the Battle King's mansion. However, the Miao tribe leader's clothes were obviously more luxurious. In other words, these people were from the Miao tribe. Why did the Miao people want to harass the Booth family village, and to use such cruel methods? Who was the person they were looking for? Run? Where do you think you're going? Elder T, under my nose, who do you think you can let escape? The Miao people parted to form a path. A middle-aged man in his 40s walked out. Yi Ching Luo could tell from that man's clothing and patterns. This person was among this group of Miao people. His status was the highest, if he didn't guess wrong. This person should be one of the elders of the Miao tribe. Sure enough, in the next moment, Elder T suppressed his anger and said, "Third Elder Miao, you just want to find someone in the Booth family village. This young couple is just passing by the Booth family village. They want to go to the holy spring to pray for a child. Why do you have to be so aggressive?" Third Elder Miao laughed loudly. He walked directly to the tea house and very naturally sat down at the table next to Yi Ching Luo. He swept a disdainful glance at Yi Ching Luo and Gu Jingyu, and his gaze paused slightly on Gu Jingyu. But very quickly he arrogantly turned his head around. Asterisk. Chapter 24:13. TSK Tisk, Elder T, you can't even protect yourself, and you still want to protect these two youngsters. Third Elder Miao laughed mockingly. Elder T's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. It's not a matter of protecting them. They're just innocent passers-by. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh out loud. The surrounding attendants all laughed in agreement. For a moment, the originally quiet Booth family village was filled with ear-piercing laughter. The atmosphere of the entire village became extremely strange. Since you're so afraid that this elder will hurt innocent passers-by, then this elder will hurt innocent people even more. Third Elder Miao's eyes were hazy as he laughed coldly. His gaze slowly landed on the expressionless young girl. The young girl was extremely calm as she looked at the 40 or so people without a ripple in her eyes. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but frown. He had come to the Booth family village to look for someone. He wanted to see the useless people of the Booth family village kneel and beg for mercy, only to be toyed with and applauded by him. This passerby wasn't afraid of them at all? Did he really think that they would only target the Booth family village? Wouldn't they hurt the innocent? His gaze turned cold as he laughed coldly and continued, "You bunch of old farts won't hand over the person that this elder wants. Then this elder will start with these innocent passers-by." Elder T's entire body trembled in anger. Third Elder Miao, don't you Miao people go too far. Our Booth family village doesn't have the person you're looking for. You want to use this excuse to plunder our resources. How dare you hurt these innocent people? Our Boo family village will fight to the death with you. Third Elder Meow looked like he had heard a joke as he looked at the clansmen around him and burst into laughter again. Fight to the death? You bunch of old and weak trash? The Meow people said disdainfully. As he spoke, he kicked the villagers who were unable to move on the ground a few more times. Come, get up and fight to the death with us, a bunch of old farts. There were also a few Meow people who pushed the trembling villagers to the ground. It was obvious that this was the norm in the Boo family village. You are a bunch of animals. Elder T clenched his fists and pressed his palms on the table, trembling. Third Elder Meow looked at Elder T disdainfully with his sinister eyes. His eyes suddenly fell on the delicate wooden box under Elder T's palm. The Meow people beside him had sharp eyes and walked over. Hey, Elder T, what other treasures are you hiding? As he spoke, the Meow Man snatched the wooden box from Elder T's hand. It was so fast that Old-Time T couldn't react at all. Elder T's expression changed drastically. He immediately rushed forward and snatched it back. Give it back. I can give you anything you want. No one is allowed to touch this thing. Elder T's attitude piqued Third Elder Meow's interest. He spread his hands. The Meow lackey immediately handed the wooden box to Third Elder Meow. The other Meow tribesman easily stopped Elder T. A Meow tribesman pushed hard. Old-Time T's body stumbled and fell backward. Behind Elder T was Yi Ching Luo's wooden table. The position where he fell was coincidentally going to hit the corner of the wooden table. To the old man, it would cause a fatal injury. Just as Elder T fell, Yi Ching Luo's body had already stood up quickly and caught hold of Elder T. Chapter 24:14. Elder T had no time to express his gratitude. He had just steadied himself when he dashed towards Third Elder Meow's direction in tears. Bastard! Don't touch it! Bastard! Return the box to me! Old Grandpa! Yi Ching Luo held onto Elder T. Elder T was an ordinary person. If he insisted on charging forward, he would be sending himself to his death. Yi Ching Luo naturally couldn't watch Elder T send himself to his death. Elder T stared at the wooden box in Third Elder Meow's hands as he bellowed furiously, Let me go! I'm going to fight with that bastard. I'm going to fight with him. Yi Ching Luo held onto him tightly. Very quickly, she pulled Elder T behind her back. Elder T wailed as he struggled with all his might, trying to charge towards Third Elder Meow. The more Elder T did so, Third Elder Meow became more and more interested in the contents of the wooden box. He seemed to be intentionally provoking Elder T, holding onto the wooden box. He shook it roughly from left to right. He sneered in disdain. What's in it? It's just a low-quality wooden box. How can it be so precious? He casually tossed it in his hands. That action agitated Elder T once again. The surrounding villagers had long been harassed by the Meow tribesmen time and time again, and were already annoyed beyond endurance. They were afraid of the Meow people's cruelty and brutality. But at this very moment, looking at Elder T's most precious wooden box, which he usually hugged in his arms like a treasure, the wooden box that no one in the village was allowed to touch, being trampled by Third Elder Meow, the rage that surged up in his heart, the so-called fear had long been replaced by it. It was just death anyway, being tortured, robbed, and trampled on by the Meow people, being hung up and beaten every single day. Compared to death, how was this any better? Fight with this bunch of bastards. Don't let them rob and humiliate us anymore. Even if we die, we must drag this bunch of bastards down with us. The surrounding villagers suddenly burst into a tragic roar of anger. Their faces were filled with an expression of facing death with equanimity. All of them raised their hoes, farming tools, etc. as they charged towards the Meow people. The Meow people totally didn't expect that this bunch of old and weak trash would suddenly go berserk. For a moment, they couldn't react in time. A group of villagers pounced on him and smashed his head. The 41 Meow people, at least a dozen of them, were pressed on the ground by a group of villagers, venting their anger. For such a long time, they were all suppressing their anger. At this moment, all of his anger was burning. They were burning with all their might. Elder T looked at the chaotic scene. He shook off Yi Qing Luo, who refused to let go of him. "Young lady, immediately leave this place with your husband amid the chaos. These people are deranged and will not let any innocent people go." As he was saying that, he pushed Yi Qing Luo towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu exchanged glances. At this critical juncture, how could they possibly leave? If they left the Bu family village, now, the Meow would definitely slaughter the entire Bu village. Seeing that the two of them were still standing in their original positions, Zhang Xian nodded. Elder T struggled even harder. "Little girl, let go of me. Let's go. Let's go. Don't tell me you really want to die here with us, bunch of old fellows. Old grandpa, if you believe me, I guarantee that no one in the Bu family village will be missing." Yi Qing Luo used her other hand and gently patted the wrinkled back of Elder T's hand. The young lady's resolute tone, as though it carried boundless energy. Elder T was stunned by Yi Qing Luo's words. Chapter 24:15. Just at this moment, after a short period of chaos, the Meow tribesmen had already regained their senses. Third Elder Meow stood up abruptly, holding the wooden box, as he pointed towards those maddened old villagers. "Quick! Beat them to death! Kill this bunch of idiots who have eaten the hearts of bears and leopards' guts!" The other Meow tribesmen who had not been beaten up by the villagers immediately pounced forward. The villagers were, after all, ordinary people. Venting their anger was not able to turn them into Super Saiyan in an instant, to explode out their battle potential. But moments later, they were restrained by that bunch of Meow tribesmen. Beat them up viciously. Third Elder Meow pointed at those villagers who had injuries on their faces, but were still stubborn and unyielding. He held the wooden box tightly in his hands. He was so infuriated that his expression was extremely gloomy. That was a handmade wooden box. Under his extreme strength, it gave off a cracking sound. Elder T looked at the scene in front of him, as tears filled his entire old face. He pushed Yi Qing Luo with force. "Young lady, that is the only remembrance left to me by my wife and son. Let me go over. Let me go over." Yi Qing Luo still didn't let go. Her charming eyes slowly swept past those villagers who had been suppressed by the Meow tribesmen till they had no way to resist. The Meow tribesmen heard Third Elder Meow's command. Thinking of the predicament of being beaten up by this bunch of old, weak, and disabled trash, they immediately raised their hands as they directly punched towards those villagers. They used all their strength. These ordinary old villagers totally could not take a few punches from them. The Meow tribesmen also used all their strength, totally wanting to take the lives of those villagers. "Stop!" Suddenly, a chilly voice rang, as ethereal and melodious to the ears. That voice was very soft and gentle, but it brought along an indescribable deterrent force. Immediately, the entire village seemed to have pressed the freeze button. Frozen on the spot, a red figure slowly walked out. Everyone's gazes turned over one by one. He saw a petite figure standing before the third elder of the Meow clan. He was only 2 steps away from Third Elder Meow. The young lady's looks were elegant. Between her brows, there was a trace of absolute chilliness. The blazing red dress swayed, even though there was no wind. It made her look like a fairy from the 9 heavens. His heart could not help but tremble. Third Elder Meow was the first to regain his senses. Frowning, he stared at the young girl in front of him and threatened in a low voice, "Little girl, are you ordering us?" Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she met Third Elder Miao's warning gaze. She narrowed her eyes. No, I'm warning you. Warning? Third Elder Miao repeated his words and laughed maniacally. Little girl, do you know who we are? Even if you want to show off, you have to look at the occasion. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. Her long and narrow eyes slightly fluttered. The innocence and pureness of the young girl were fully displayed. Are you people? I thought you were just a bunch of beasts. She paused and covered her mouth. Tui, 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 I said it wrong, after being scolded by Yi Qing Luo. The Miao people's faces turned extremely ugly, but he saw Yi Qing Luo covering her mouth in a mischievous and adorable manner, as though she had said something wrong. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. Little girl still knows fear. That means there's nothing wrong with your brain. Saying your beasts is already praising you. Yi Qing Luo added another sentence. Her long and narrow eyes curved, showing her pureness. Third Elder Miao's face instantly turned black. Chapter 24:16. Put it down. Just as Third Elder Miao was about to smash it down, the young lady calmly spat out 2 words. Her calm and indifferent voice. It revealed an unshakable charisma. Even Third Elder Miao, who was used to killing, seemed to have lost all his energy when he heard these 2 words. Third Elder Miao's expression changed slightly as anger surged in his eyes. How could he be frightened by a young lady? Young lady, how dare you put on an act? Third Elder Miao suppressed the fear in his heart as his sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. But the next moment, after meeting Yi Qing Luo's eyes, that pair of eyes, what kind of eyes? That gaze was like a poisonous snake. It coiled around him tightly, making him unable to breathe. Obviously, her pupils were like glass, crystal clear. Obviously, her eyes were long and narrow with an evil charm. That kind of enchanting charm, the kind of beauty that could topple a city. But it was filled with an austere and cold chill. Just a glance, but it made one feel. The feeling of falling into an ice cellar. Third Elder Miao's body froze on the spot. That hand, which was raised up high, suddenly loosened. The wooden box fell from his hand. Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand and caught that wooden box. But because of Third Elder Miao's anger, the wooden box, which he held tightly, had long lost its original firmness. The moment the wooden box fell into Yi Qing Luo's hands, it had already broken into pieces. The things in the wooden box all fell onto the ground. Old woman. Elder T pounced forward, using his own body, to block the things that fell out of the wooden box. He swiftly picked up the things as he softly apologized to the things that fell onto the ground, as though he was apologizing to his own wife. Elder T speedily picked up the things. The surrounding, no Miao people dared to step forward to stop him, because Yi Qing Luo was standing beside Elder T. Her entire body was emitting a horrifying pressure. Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyelids, looking at Elder T wrapping those things which were more important than his life into his clothes. The things were all picked up. She slowly bent down as she was about to help Elder T up. Elder T was anxious and agitated to regain these important things. His fingers kept trembling. With Yi Qing Luo's support, Elder T stood up. In his hand, he was still carefully rolling up the scroll that had fallen on the ground. His fingers trembled. The entire scroll was unfurled. The portrait in the scroll reflected into Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted. Elder T immediately squatted down and held the scroll in his arms, as if it was a treasure. Yi Qing Luo held old-time T's wrist tightly. Grandpa, wait! Elder T felt like he was in a dream. Now he was very clear. This young couple, they were all extraordinary people. Perhaps these two would be the salvation of the Bu family village. Let me have a look at the picture scroll. Yi Qing Luo asked gently. Old-time T was stunned. He looked at the scroll in his arms and then looked at Yi Qing Luo. Soon after, he slowly loosened his grip and unfurled the scroll. In the painting, there was an old woman wearing coarse clothes. His smile was extremely kind and gentle. He could tell this was also a very gentle person. Yi Qing Luo knew the person in the painting. She had just met the person in the painting not long ago. Wasn't it the first day she came to the northern continent, when she had a conflict with you, Wen Kuang? The granny who wholeheartedly wanted to sacrifice herself to save her? She had not expected. Chapter 24:17. Little girl, you know the person in the portrait? Looking at Yi Qing Luo's expression, Elder T's heart suddenly jumped and he asked nervously. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. Thinking about what Miao Yi had said about Grandma Chi's grandson, she was silent for a while, then nodded. When I first arrived in Joyful Heart City, Grandma Bu helped me a little, so we can be considered acquaintances. Elder T's eyes widened. His turbid old eyes were gradually covered by a layer of mist. Tears along his wrinkled face slid down bit by bit. He grabbed Yi Qing Luo's arm agitatedly. You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? The old woman. She's still alive, still alive. Her voice was choked with sobs as she said, You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? Looking at Elder T's tearful face, Yi Qing Luo's heart softened a little. No matter what the reason was, Grandma Bu didn't return to the Bu family village. He didn't see Elder T again. For old-time T, none of this was important. The important thing was Granny Bu was still alive. His wife was still alive. This was the best answer she could give him. After everything is settled, follow us to Qinghua City to meet Grandma Bu. Yi Qing Luo held Elder T's hand tightly and patted it lightly. She must want to see you very much. Elder T choked with sobs and couldn't speak. He wiped the tears off his face and nodded. Yi Qing Luo and Elder T had no one in their eyes as they chatted idly. The surrounding Miao tribesmen felt as if they had been disgraced, especially third Elder Miao. His face was as black as charcoal. You bunch of old and weak trash. How dare you be so bold? Third Elder Miao gritted his teeth and roared. Little girl, do you want to meddle in other people's business? Today, this elder will make an example of you first. As the third elder of the Miao tribe, in front of the Miao tribesmen, he was repeatedly frightened by a young girl who looked no more than 14 or 15 years old, and he did not even dare to resist. If the news spread to the Miao stockade village, what face would he have left to face the Miao tribesmen? It was very likely that his position as the third elder would not be stable. He had to get back at them. He had to teach this bitch a lesson. Third Elder Miao's eyes revealed a vicious glint as the attack in his hands had already turned into a biting, cold, murderous intent, pouncing towards Yi Qing Luo, a terrifying aura. In an instant, it spread throughout the entire Bu family village. Grandpa, take the villagers and hide well. With me around, no one will be in danger. Yi Qing Luo pushed Elder T towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Then he leaped up and flew towards the profound energy released by third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao's attack. She could not avoid him. Once she avoids it, third Elder Miao's attack would fall on the innocent villagers behind her. And these villagers were just ordinary people. The aftershock of third Elder Miao's attack would also injure the villagers. The only thing she could do, it was to force third Elder Miao's attack back. Furthermore, suppress third Elder Miao. Gu Jingyu supported Elder T. He frowned slightly and raised his head to look at the girl who was leaving a trail of sunset in the sky. His heart was beating faster and faster. Why, he was clearly beside her. But she wasn't willing to rely on him. Why must she choose to risk her life to save the Bu family village's villagers? She obviously knew. He would rush over to the Bu family village to save the villagers. But she didn't say anything to him. This kind of woman. Chapter 24:18. Third Elder Miao and Yi Qing Luo exchanged over 10 moves. Third Elder Miao realized the disparity between his and Yi Qing Luo's abilities. His expression became even more solemn. He was overwhelmed with shock. He couldn't believe that this young lady who looked so weak that she could be easily strangled actually possessed such powerful strength. Even he wasn't her match. Since when was there such an incredible young lady in the North Continent? But moments later, Third Elder Miao was covered in injuries as he was flung out in an extremely pathetic state. Third Elder Miao finally stabilized his footing. His entire body was covered in injuries as it affected his muscles. It was so painful that he grimaced in pain. He couldn't help but curse at this wretched hussy's insidiousness. Yi Qing Luo's injuries on Third Elder Miao didn't even use her profound energy to hurt his internal organs. But she kept on giving Third Elder Miao one injury after another. Moreover, the injuries on every part of his body were all places that could easily be affected, and the pain would be extreme. At this moment, Third Elder Miao was in an extremely sorry state. "You bunch of good-for-nothings! Hurry up and help me!" Third Elder Miao bellowed angrily at the surrounding Miao people. Those 40 to 50 Miao people were probably shocked by Yi Qing Luo's ferocious battle power, but no one stepped forward. Third Elder Miao was so angry that he stomped his feet, but no matter how he scolded or howled, those Miao people stood on the spot as they stared at him with wide eyes. No matter how badly he was tortured by Yi Qing Luo, he was in an extremely pathetic state. Whereas on the other side, under Gu Jingyu's protection, Elder T had gathered all the Bu family villagers at a corner of the tea house. Elder T hugged the things in his arms tightly as he looked at Yi Qing Luo worriedly. "Young master, go help your wife, we'll be fine." Gu Jingyu placed one hand behind his back as he looked at Yi Qing Luo's direction with a complicated gaze. He looked at the villagers who were hiding behind him as they trembled in fear but were worried about the situation anxiously. Eventually he shook his head. "She can handle it alone, I'll protect you. If she leaves you, the Miao people might take the opportunity to kidnap you, to threaten her." When the villagers heard that, they couldn't persuade further. Indeed, if there was no one to protect them, they would be easily captured by the Miao people. By then, it would implicate that young lady instead. Soon the battle ended. Third Elder Miao lay on the ground in a sorry state, his body covered in blood. He no longer had the strength to move. His body was still twitching and trembling. Yi Qing Luo casually swung the long whip in her hand. The whip cut through the air, making a hua-hua sound. It was also mixed with a wave of air that kept rolling. Third Elder Miao trembled even more violently when he saw this. He cowered in fear. Where was the slightest bit of his usual high-spirited demeanor? Just earlier, he was whipped by Yi Qing Luo till his entire body was covered with injuries. Moreover, the sharp pain on his body did not numb him at all. Instead, it became more and more painful. He screamed in pain. Even if he wanted to faint, he couldn't. A shadow had already formed in his heart. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose slightly as her long and narrow eyes outlined an extremely shallow arc. She bent down and looked down at the man who was trembling with fear. "What? Aren't you going to teach me a lesson? Why was he curled up on the ground? How are you going to lecture me like this?" His words caused Third Elder Miao's face to turn red with shame. But Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see his shame. Chapter 24:19. "You! How dare you!" The more Yi Qing Luo said she didn't want his life, the more afraid Third Elder Miao was. His eyes widened and his hoarse voice was filled with hatred and murderous intent. "You dare to kill me! I'm an elder of Miao Miao. I'm an elder of Miao Miao Miao." Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled fearlessly. "Very soon you won't be." Perhaps this sentence had infuriated Third Elder Miao. His body, which was sprawled on the ground, started to twist violently. "Slut! This elder wants you dead." "Want you?" He was roaring. His voice was almost hoarse. Just at this moment, Yi Qing Luo saw clearly that Third Elder Miao's pupils suddenly widened. Numerous black things started to spread out from Third Elder Miao's right eye. The white of his eye slowly turned black. It blended together with the color of his pupils. Third Elder Miao's right eye was pitch black, like a bottomless black hole. It was extremely horrifying. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as she stared at Third Elder Miao's right eye. She wasn't sure what was going on with Third Elder Miao's eye. Behind her, Gu Jingyu's panicked voice was heard. "Miss Yi, be careful!" The next moment, her wrist was tightened. Her body was suddenly pulled by someone. Her face crashed into a solid chest. "Gu Jingyu, what are you doing?" The unfamiliar man's presence wrapped around her body. Yi Qing Luo couldn't tolerate any man other than Ah Xian touching her. She felt a wave of disgust and discomfort. She struggled. Gu Jingyu hugged her even tighter. Bam! The man's suppressed groan was heard beside her ear. Yi Qing Luo was stunned as she pushed Gu Jingyu away and looked up at him. Gu Jingyu's face was pale as a trace of blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. He met Yi Qing Luo's gaze. He immediately raised his hand and wiped the trace of blood from the corner of his lips as he took a deep breath and stabilized himself. "What's the matter?" Yi Qing Luo grabbed Gu Jingyu's arm. The cold touch made her frown even tighter. "Nothing." Gu Jingyu's lips twitched as he shook his head indifferently. "You don't need to bother about me. I'll leave these people to you." Yi Qing Luo didn't let go of his wrist. "Tell me the truth." Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips, turned his head, and did not speak. Clearly, he wasn't going to tell the truth. Ha! Ha ha ha! What a lovely couple! Third Elder Miao panted heavily, but he could not stop laughing. Yi Qing Luo pulled Gu Jingyu away and looked at Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao's eyes had already returned to normal. She frowned as she recalled Third Elder Miao's black eyes. She then recalled the scene of Gu Jingyu hugging her tightly, his back facing Third Elder Miao, and the scene of him getting injured. Could it be, your little lover has been poisoned by my special Gu poison? As long as I'm injured, he'll be injured too. Ha 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 ha. Third Elder Miao clutched his chest and laughed. "Little girl, didn't you want to kill me? Kill me, and this little lover of yours will die with me." Sure enough, it was Gu poison. Yi Qing Luo's expression sunk as she glanced sideways at Gu Jingyu. As expected, as Third Elder Miao laughed heartily, Gu Jingyu's face grew paler. He couldn't even stand stably. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand to support him as she turned her head to look at Third Elder Miao. "Remove the Gu immediately!" Chapter 24:20. Yi Qing Luo's fingers clenched as an eerie glint appeared in her eyes. "Are you threatening me?" Third Elder Miao could tell that Yi Qing Luo cared a lot about her little lover. He had a way to control Yi Qing Luo. Third Elder Miao naturally had nothing to fear. "Yes, this elder is threatening you." Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly when she heard that. Her long and narrow eyes outlined a curved arc. It looked extremely demonic and extremely alluring, but her eyes were sparkling with a faint glow. But it was filled with chilliness. It was like the cold wind in December, gathering at the bottom of her eyes. Such an oppressive pressure. Even Third Elder Miao's heart couldn't help but tremble. He suppressed the surging fear in his heart, forcing himself to look as though he was in control of the entire situation, forcing himself not to lower Yi Qing Luo's imposing manner. "Young lady, if you still want your little lover to live, then obediently kneel on the ground and admit your mistake. Then, kill these old fellows in the Bu family village in front of me." Third Elder Miao raised his head complacently as he arrogantly gave out his orders. His gaze towards Yi Qing Luo became colder and colder. Third Elder Meow only felt carefree. He became even more complacent. Young lady, don't you like to meddle in other people's business? Now I will let you meddle in this matter. How about it? Young lady, what will you choose? Will you save your beloved little lover, or save these old fellows who have nothing to do with you? Third Elder Meow's gaze swept past those 50 old villagers who were gathered at the corner of the tea stall. The villagers were frightened by his gaze and heard the contents of his words. Their faces were filled with shock and terror. These Meow people were simply too cruel. They actually thought of such a method to torture people's hearts. They were not human at all. The villagers were filled with anger, but no one dared to really vent out their anger, the courage to work together and counterattack in a rampage. They had long been exhausted. At this moment, Elder T hugged the thing in his arms tightly as his steps trembled as he walked out. Young lady, you just promise him to. Kill us, and let him cure your husband's poison. Elder T. The villagers behind him were stunned and hurriedly called out to Elder T. Elder T slowly turned around, facing the villagers. There were still traces of tears on his face. His tear-stained eyes swept across the villagers who had accompanied him for most of his life. Choking with sobs, he said, "This couple was just an innocent passerby. It was our carelessness that got them involved. All this while we have been enduring the Meow people's plunder and brutal killings. Time and time again he had to endure and suffer again and again. But it did not change the Meow people's conscience. Instead, it encouraged the Meow people's brutality and cruelty. All of this is our fault. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Now this pair of innocent passers-by, because they helped us, caused them to be poisoned by the Meow tribe. How can we sit back and do nothing? How can we watch innocent passers-by be tortured by the goo poison because of our lives? The Meow people had no heart. Don't tell me we don't have any. If this young man really died because of the goo poison, even if we survived, can we really escape from the blame of our conscience? One question after another silenced the villagers. They could not refute. Chapter 24-21. This place is our Boo family's turf. This place belongs to all of us. This place cannot allow anyone to trample, to invade. Elder T's voice, towards the end, was filled with solemnity and determination. He said these words with the heart of meeting his death. Elder T's words landed. He hugged it tightly in his arms, as though it was a treasure. Following that, his vision, bit by bit, swept past all the villagers. This is my personal decision, so even if you don't want to accept, I will not force you. But no need to persuade me. I have already decided. Saying that, Elder T turned around, facing Yi Qing Luo. Young lady, after I die, pass these things to my old woman. Saying that, Elder T passed the things in his hands to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo stared at Elder T's hand, not moving for a long time. Elder T gave her a benevolent smile. Young lady, it's all right. Do it. I won't blame you. Just treat it as giving me a release. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly, not saying a word, not moving. The atmosphere froze in an instant. When Third Elder Meow saw this, he finally felt like he was in control of his own life. He laughed complacently and arrogantly, ha ha ha. Young lady, look, the Boo family village's villagers are so understanding. They all want to sacrifice themselves to fulfill you two lovers. Why aren't you quickly taking action? Fulfill the villagers' sacrifice for you? Third Elder Meow laughed loudly as he looked at those 50 Meow people who were still standing on the same spot, not moving at all. Now the initiative is already in my hands. What are you all still in a daze for? Quick, go over and help that young lady. After all, she's just a young lass who hasn't even grown her hair. You all have to help her kill people by the side. Although his words sounded as though he wanted someone to help Yi Qing Luo, in actual fact, he was forcing Yi Qing Luo to choose. Forcing Yi Qing Luo to kill those villagers. However, after third Elder Meow finished his words, those Meow people still didn't move. They all looked at third Elder Meow as though he was a wax statue. Third Elder Meow pointed at the Meow people angrily. Good. Now this elder can't order you around. Good, very good. He vented his anger onto Yi-Ching Luo. Young lady, this elder doesn't have the patience to waste words with you. This elder will give you the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn to think about it. If you still haven't made a choice after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, then this elder will make the choice for you. Hearing this, Elder T became even more anxious. Little girl, just do it. Our Bu family village has implicated you and your husband. Elder T once again raised the thing in his hand towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. I've lived for most of my life. My only obsession is to wait for my son, to wait for my old woman to come back. Now that I know that my old woman is still alive, I no longer have any obsession. You don't have to worry about me. At this time, a few villagers walked up to her and said, Little girl, Elder T is right. We are already people with half of our bodies in the yellow soil. We will die no matter when we die. This is the territory of our Bu family village. How can we implicate innocent people and sacrifice ourselves for our own lives? Isn't it just death? We're not afraid. Little girl, dying in your hands is better than letting those Meow family village dogs continue to bully us. Oh. Chapter 24-22. The villagers were all talking at once. In the end, all the villagers chose to die without any hesitation. They were not willing to implicate the innocent. Looking at these old people in front of her, each and every one of their faces were unafraid of death. Yi-Ching Luo's heart softened slightly. There were many bad people in this world, but at the same time there were kind people. The villagers in this Bu family village were all very gentle people. They could sacrifice themselves for others. This was a kind of noble sentiment. Yi-Ching Luo's gaze slowly turned gentle. Cough. Cough, cough. A cough rang out, breaking the clamorous argument at this moment. Everyone's gaze turned over. Gu Jingyu sat on the stone bench, one hand placed on the stone table, while the other pressed against his chest. His pale complexion looked extremely weak. Coughing sounds could be heard. The more he coughed, the whiter his face became. That seemingly slender body looked as if it would collapse at any time. You all, listen to me. Gu Jingyu moved his lips as his voice was hoarse. The villagers immediately stopped their clamoring, waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak. Gu Jingyu moved his body. He supported himself on the stone table as he tried to stand up, but his entire body was weak, unable to exert any strength. Yi-Ching Luo's slender brows creased as she slowly walked up, supporting Gu Jingyu with one hand. Gu Jingyu's gentle eyes flashed past a glint of joy. He lowered his voice as he thanked her. Then, with Yi-Ching Luo's support, he stood up, a pair of gentle like water, but filled with an irresistible, imposing manner, looked at those villagers as he spoke in a serious and sincere manner. Miss Yi, and I appreciate your kind intentions, but your request, we can't do it. Little master, we've already decided. We've thought it through. You don't need to have any psychological pressure. The villagers immediately opened their mouths. Elder T nodded. Little master, this is the best choice for you and for us. Gu Jingyu slowly shook his head. If I die under the gu poison, your conscience will not be at ease. But if the entire village, because of me, die under Miss Ye's hands, how can I be at ease? He looked at those villagers. Thank you for thinking for us, but we can't be that selfish. Young master, Elder T said anxiously, you still have a bright future ahead of you. We're just a bunch of old guys. Half of our bodies are under the ground. Even if we live, it is meaningless. Gu Jingyu's gaze was firm. Everyone lives in this world for a unique reason. No one lives without meaning. I can't let you die for my own life. Saying that, Gu Jingyu looked towards Yi Qing Luo. Miss Yi, you cannot kill these villagers. Young master, the villagers shouted out one after another. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh when he saw how they were trying to shirk the responsibility. How touching! Ha ha ha! Little girl, the final decision is in your hands. This elder is very curious. How will you choose? Ha ha ha! Everyone's vision was placed on Yi Qing Luo. The villagers lowered their voices as they pleaded in a low voice, allowing Yi Qing Luo to make a decision. Gu Jingyu shook his head at Yi Qing Luo, determined not to let everyone die together because of his own poison. The scene was once again in an uproar. Chapter 24-23. When did I say that I want to kill these villagers? Yi Qing Luo's clear voice was mixed with a hint of coldness. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she glanced at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's expression stiffened slightly, as though he felt uncomfortable because of Yi Qing Luo's words, and he pressed on his heart as he coughed hard. The pair of gentle eyes flashed past a trace of inexplicable grief. His heart felt as though there was a needle poking at it nonstop. Gu Jingyu gave a bitter smile as his lips twitched. Indeed, he had no place in her heart at all. When Yi Luo didn't deny it, the villagers misunderstood that they were husband and wife. He thought that he was infallible. She had a special place in Yi Luo's heart, a special existence. But in the end, he couldn't even be compared to these villagers. Looking at Gu Jingyu's inexplicable feeling, the surrounding atmosphere became desolate. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. She didn't quite understand the change in Gu Jingyu's thoughts. She couldn't figure it out. She simply couldn't be bothered to think further. Instead, she looked at those villagers. Don't say any more. I won't kill you for the so-called cure. Elder T frowned. Young lady, other than the Miao people, no one else in the world can cure the Miao people. We, this group of old fellows, appreciate your kind intentions. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips rose slightly as she slowly walked towards Elder T. She raised her fair wrist and gently pressed the parcel that Elder T passed to her, pressing it back into Elder T's arms. This carries your feelings, carries your longing. You need to pass it to Grandma Bu personally. Elder T was stunned. But young lady, don't tell me. Do you really want your own husband to die from the poison? Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu indifferently. He and I are just ordinary friends. He is not my husband. Elder T's mouth opened wider and wider. This time, Elder T didn't treat Yi Qing Luo's explanation as Yi Qing Luo being shy. But even if he is not your husband, then... Some villagers opened their mouth apprehensively. Even if he was not this young lady's husband. But they let this young master be tortured to death by the gu poison just like that. They were the same. They couldn't accept it. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's denial, Gu Jingyu's heart fell to the bottom. His entire body felt cold as if he was in an ice house. The gu poison in his body kept moving about in his internal organs. He is in pain, but it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Could it be? Had he really fallen in love with this girl whom he had only met twice? Moreover, he had given his heart? Otherwise, why would he do that just because of a single sentence from this young girl? His heart ached to such an extent. There's no need for you to say anything more. If I wanted you to die, I wouldn't have saved you earlier. Since I've chosen to save you, I'll protect you till the end. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and calmly suppressed the villagers' uneasy words. Then she looked at the man who had lost all support and was sitting powerlessly on the stone bench. As for young Master Gu, although he and I are just ordinary friends, he was poisoned to save me after all. Logically speaking, I can't just watch him die. Yi Qing Luo's voice was calm and indifferent. It floated into Gu Jingyu's ears. It made Gu Jingyu's heart jump for no reason. Chapter 24. The third elder of Miao clan had heard their conversation. He looked at Yi Qing Luo in disdain as he ridiculed. Young lady, do you think that just because you can defeat me, you will be able to cure my goo poison? Thinking of protecting both sides? Do you really think there's such a beautiful thing in this world? I don't know if there's such a beautiful thing, but I know. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight into third elder Miao's eyes. You, no matter in which aspect, you're defeated by me. Her voice paused as she sneered. Defeated by me, you're just a clown. Third elder Miao's face sunk as the anger in his chest continued to burn. Good. You still want to be stubborn with me. I'll let you experience the power of the Miao family's goo worms. Third elder Miao raised his palm. He took out a dagger and forcefully cut his palm. Fresh blood dripped down from his palm. He gave a sinister smile as he opened his palm. He started to recite the Miao tribe's incantation. As he recited, as he looked at Yi Qing Luo's expression, he wanted to see Yi Qing Luo panicking and begging for mercy. But Yi Qing Luo's expression was as calm and indifferent as usual. Her gaze was extremely cold. There wasn't a trace of panic or fear. Instead, it was filled with a chilling, cold glint and determination. Third elder Miao's gaze and Yi Qing Luo's eyes met for an instant. Yi Qing Luo suddenly revealed an extremely light and enchanting smile. Third elder Miao, you can threaten me because of the goo poison in Master Goo's body. If you want to use the goo poison to hurt Master Goo, then I will disregard everything and make a move against you. Third elder Miao's mouth, which was reciting the incantation, suddenly paused. You dare! You can try if I dare. Yi Qing Luo retorted with ridicule. As long as you activate the goo worm in his body, I have no worries. Anyway, as compared to Master Goo, you don't want to die. Third elder Miao's face turned steely green as he stared at Yi Qing Luo, as though he couldn't wait to tear her into pieces. However, he still cherished his life and stopped the incantation in his mouth. Gu Jingyu, who was sitting by the side, looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment. Yi Qing Luo's earlier words kept repeating in her mind. She was clearly just a young girl, yet he possessed such boldness. Although what she had said to him sounded so cold, Lin Mingya still felt that it was a pity. But from her words, it was clear that she cared about him. However, if it was anyone else who said these words, they would have been shocked. It was very possible, that such an effect could not be achieved. He was also unable to suppress third elder Miao's aura. It was obviously third elder Miao who had something which could threaten Yi Qing Luo. However, third elder Miao did not dare to act rashly. She was the only one who could be so domineering and overbearing. Furthermore, he had hit the nail on the head and pointed out third elder Miao's fear of death. It was clearly a disadvantage, yet he relied on his own aura. He had forcefully reversed the situation. Gu Jingyu's gaze towards Yi Qing Luo became increasingly gentle, increasingly filled with some kind of feelings. Third elder Miao, as for me, I have no intention to become enemies with the Miao tribe, but since I've bumped into this matter today, then I have no choice but to care about it. Moreover, doesn't third elder Miao like to implicate innocent people? Chapter 24-25. Third elder Miao's face was ashen. If only he had known that this young girl was so powerful. No matter what, he would never drag this young girl into it. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's smiling face, third elder Miao felt like spitting out a mouthful of blood in his heart. What exactly do you want? Third elder Miao asked while gnashing his teeth. As soon as the words left his mouth, third elder Miao shut his mouth in annoyance. He couldn't help but slap his own mouth. Right now he was clearly in control. It was him who could make use of the venomous worm to threaten Yi Qing Luo into not daring to make a move on him. It should be Yi Qing Luo who was afraid. But after he asked this question, He forcefully lowered his aura by a notch. It had evolved into him, begging Yi Qing Luo to give him a quick death. Handing the initiative over to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as she curled her lips sweetly and spoke in a calm voice. After all, you're also a member of the Miao tribe. As for me, naturally I can't kill you. Hearing this, Third Elder Miao's expression froze and his eyes brightened. That's right. I am an elder of the Miao tribe. I represent the entire Miao tribe. If you dare to touch me, you must shut up. Yi Qing Luo indifferently glanced at Third Elder Miao. His voice was cold and emotionless. Third Elder Miao's throat tightened and he couldn't make a sound. Yi Qing Luo slowly took a few steps forward. Third Elder Miao's body went limp and he staggered backward, as though he was frightened by Yi Qing Luo. His entire face was deathly pale. You cured young Master Gu's Gu poison and made the fiercest oath of the Miao tribe. You promised never to cause trouble for the Bu family village again. Yi Qing Luo stated her request, word by word. Her eyes were calm and her expression was indifferent. It was as if he was talking about something extremely ordinary. Why should I believe you? Third Elder Miao straightened his neck and glared at him. The only thing he could rely on now was the poison in Gu Jingyu's body. If he cured the Gu, Yi Qing Luo had no more misgivings as she struck out at him. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. Her long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. Because you have no choice. What do you mean? Third Elder Miao's face turned even paler, and he took a few more steps back, as though Yi Qing Luo was a dreadful beast. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she suddenly opened her palm towards Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao thought that Yi Qing Luo was going to attack him. He immediately let out a loud cry. He dodged towards the Miao tribesmen who were standing still at the side. But Yi Qing Luo instructed him to simply open his palm. It was very simple and very casual as he waved it at Third Elder Miao. It was a simple gesture. Instead, it seemed like he was mocking Third Elder Miao for making a fuss over nothing. Third Elder Miao felt that he had been played. She was angry and embarrassed, just as he was about to help a Miao man to stand up. Suddenly, his palm came into contact with something sharp. A bloody gash immediately appeared on his palm. Fresh blood flowed down his palm. Third Elder Miao retracted his hand in pain as he looked at the wound on his palm. It wasn't considered deep, but it was definitely not a shallow wound. He immediately looked towards the place where his palm had touched earlier in puzzlement. From this angle, through the bright light in the surroundings, Third Elder Miao saw it clearly. Beside that Miao man, there was an extremely thin ray of light. Chapter 24-26. What was that? Third Elder Miao's face turned pale as he trembled as he stretched out his hand, probing it. He then discovered that was a strand of extremely fine silver thread. Each strand of silver thread was as sharp as a blade. Under the illumination of the light, it reflected sparks, which made one dumbstruck. Third Elder Miao looked at that strand of silver thread in disbelief. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He abruptly turned his head back, looking behind him at those Miao tribesmen who were unable to move. As expected, he could clearly see that every single Miao tribesman's body was wrapped with strand of silver thread. If one didn't look carefully, there was no way to tell. This was the reason why the Miao tribesmen were unable to move for so long. It wasn't that they didn't listen to him, but their limbs were bound, their bodies were bound. They had no way to move at all when on Earth. Third Elder Miao only felt his heart pounding in fear. His eyes were filled with shock as he slowly turned his head, looking at Yi Qing Luo. His entire body was stiff, totally unable to twist. This young lady went on Earth, under the circumstances that he didn't know, using these silver threads to bind the Miao tribesmen, making them unable to resist? From the start till the end, he actually didn't have any sense. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly as she looked at Third Elder Miao with a light smile. Her 5 fingers casually waved towards his open palm. Third Elder Miao saw it clearly. The bursts of silver cold glint scurried in front of his eyes. Those silver threads were all controlled by Yi Qing Luo, using her hands to control those strands of silver threads. This time he was completely sure. It was this young lady, under the circumstances where he didn't sense it at all, restraining his 50 over Miao tribesmen. Third Elder Miao only felt cold sweat dripping down, as his entire body turned soft, almost unable to stand. Third Elder Miao, you're an intelligent person, so you should be clear that the current you has no conditions and qualifications to negotiate with me. Yi Qing Luo shook her fingers. Those 50 over people who were restrained by the silver threads uncontrollably moved their hands. One after another, they stretched out their hands towards Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao angrily stamped his feet as he berated. You dare to touch me? All of you stop. All of you stop for this elder. However, the Miao people had no way to control their own consciousness, no matter how much Third Elder Miao roared in anger. These people's hands uncontrollably reached for Third Elder Miao's neck. I will cure him of the goo. I'll cure him. Third Elder Miao was scared out of his wits. He held his head in a sorry state and sat down on the ground, shouting loudly. Those pairs of hands were about to reach his neck. He stopped. Soon after, the pairs of hands slowly moved away. A path was revealed. Third Elder Miao is indeed an intelligent person. Yi Qing Luo alluringly curled her lips as she gave a calm and indifferent smile. Her charming eyes were filled with indifference and coldness. Then let's get started. As soon as she finished speaking, all of a sudden, a black pill popped out from his fingertip. The medicine's words fell into Third Elder Miao's lips. It melted into Third Elder Miao's mouth. Third Elder Miao coughed loudly a few times and immediately raised his hand to dig his throat. But after retching a few times, he couldn't spit anything out. What did you feed me? Third Elder Miao clutched his neck as he stared sinisterly at Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 24-27. Damn it. Now the person who lost more than he gained was him, his Miao tribe. He didn't know where Yi Qing Luo got her face to say such words. Third Elder Miao clenched his teeth in anger. The expression on his face contorted into a sinister expression. It looked extremely terrifying. TSK. Third Elder Miao, could it be that you don't believe that I've poisoned you? Yi Qing Luo's little face was filled with doubt as she blinked her eyes. Third Elder Miao clenched his fists and did not reply. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue as she continued on her own. But, Third Elder Miao, it's better for you to choose to believe me. After all, in front of you, there's already Little Marquis and your Miao tribe's eldest young miss. As a warning, when Yi Qing Luo mentioned Little Duke and eldest young Miss Miao, Third Elder Miao's face instantly turned pale as he raised his head in disbelief, staring at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. You are... The news of Yi Qing Luo being hunted down by the entire continent by the Battle King's Manor had already caused an uproar in the Northern Waves continent. The Miao people were naturally aware of this matter. Miao Rongrong, the eldest daughter of the Miao tribe, was the one who cured Yuan Kuang's poison. The Miao tribe's people naturally knew the reason why the Battle King Manor was searching for Yi Qing Luo in the entire continent. Not long ago, Lady Miao returned to the Miao Stockade village in a sorry state. Who knew what they discussed with the Miao tribe's leader? Young Miss Miao announced that she was going into seclusion and refused anyone's visit. The day of the Saintess election was just around the corner. Young Miss Miao was determined to obtain the position of Holy Maiden. How could Miss Meow choose to go into seclusion at this critical juncture? Third Elder Meow had more or less heard about it. It was said that young Mistress Meow had been poisoned. He was poisoned at the War King's mansion. He thought of how the young prince had been poisoned. Third Elder Meow's body suddenly stiffened. Cold sweat dripped down uncontrollably from his entire body. Yi Qing Luo looked at Third Elder Meow's expression and knew that he understood her words. Then she rubbed her chin and clicked her tongue. Third Elder Meow, I've never been a patient person. Me. Release. Third Elder Meow's face was deathly pale, and he spat out each word in a flustered and exasperated manner. No matter what, he would never believe it. This young girl, is she really only 13 or 14 years old in front of me? Such an oppressive pressure, such a fierce method. This was a threat that he couldn't resist and couldn't resist at all. Little by little, Third Elder Meow couldn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. But that was the truth. The truth was, indeed, he had no choice. He wanted to live. Compared to young Master Gu, he wanted to live more. He could only choose to take a gamble and believe in Yi Qing Luo. He could only believe in Yi Qing Luo. He watched as Third Elder Meow walked towards Gu Jingyu with a dark expression. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. It was this kind of mental fortitude. He could even become an elder of the Meow tribe. Was she overestimating the Meow tribe? Third Elder Meow was very clear in his heart. The Gu poison in Gu Jingyu's body would bind him and Gu Jingyu together. Once he was hurt in any way, Gu Jingyu would suffer the same amount of damage. How could she really let the Meow tribesman strangle his neck? However, Third Elder Meow cherished his life. When he met with matters related to his life, he had completely lost all his rationality. This was a battle in his heart, whose inner heart wasn't strong, who would be toyed with in the palm of his hand. Chapter 24-28. She had grasped Third Elder Meow's weakness, and also grasped Third Elder Meow's weakness. Yi Qing Luo wasn't worried that Third Elder Meow would play any tricks. After all, those 2 lessons learned from the mistakes of the past had already cast a psychological shadow on Third Elder Meow. Moreover, Gu Jingyu was the young matriarch of the Gufeng sect. Naturally, he wasn't a stupid person. If Third Elder Meow really had a disloyal heart, Gu Jingyu should have sensed it. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about the 2 of them as she walked directly towards the Bu family village's villagers. Old grandpas, old ladies, later let Third Elder Meow promise you, according to the Meow tribe's venomous oath, that he will not harass you anymore. In future, you don't need to worry about being harassed by the Meow tribe anymore. The villagers were so shocked by this turn of events that they couldn't react in time. It was just a matter of a moment. The Meow people who had always been aggressive, overbearing, and unreasonable were actually obediently submitting before this young lady. Furthermore, she even swore a venomous oath to return them a peaceful life. Plop! A sound of someone kneeling on the ground was heard. Old T's face was filled with tears as he knelt on the ground. Young lady, you're the entire village's benefactor. Thank you. Thank you. Originally, they thought that today was because of their Bu family village, implicating this innocent young lady. They had not expected that. This young lady had saved the entire village. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly knelt down on one knee and helped old T up. Old grandpa, didn't I ask for a pot of tea from you? Those villagers also started to kneel down. They all thanked Yi Qing Luo for her help. How could Yi Qing Luo accept so many elderly's kowtows? She immediately activated her profound energy and dragged their kneeling bodies. Old grandpas, old ladies, if you really want to thank me, in future when I come to the Bu family village, please brew me the best tea. Yi Qing Luo helped old T up. Old grandpa, I have some matters regarding Grandma Bu which I want to ask you. Old T raised his sleeve and wiped the tears off his face. Young lady, ask. As long as I know something, I will tell you everything without reservation. The Meow tribe kept robbing you, just to find one person. Who is that person? Why are the Meow tribe looking for that person? Unless it was someone very important to the Meow tribe, or someone very important to the Meow tribe. Why would the Meow tribe use such a method to find that person? Moreover, the Meow people seemed to be very certain. The person they were looking for was in the Boo family village? Elder T was stunned as his gaze went past Yi Ching Luo and looked towards third Elder Meow, who was helping Gu Jingyu to cure the Goo. His dry lips slightly pursed. To be honest, we really don't know who the Meow people are looking for. If we knew, we would not have endured the Meow people's plundering and brutal killings time and time again. The other villagers nodded in agreement. I've always felt that the Meow people are deliberately using this as an excuse to plunder our resources. We also want to know who exactly are the Meow people looking for, why that person is not standing out. After the villager finished speaking, he hurriedly explained, I'm not asking that person to step forward and throw away his life. It's just that the villagers of the Boo family village have suffered too much because of that person. More than 10 villagers have died. We should at least have the right to know. Yi Ching Luo nodded, expressing her understanding, listening to the dozens of villagers talking at once. Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Chapter 24-29. Almost certain. The Boo family village's people were indeed not sure who the Meow tribesmen were looking for, but the Meow tribesmen were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Boo family village. Looked like they could only wait for third Elder Meow to cure Gu Jingyu's Gu before they could get some information from him, about the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Third Elder Meow wiped his forehead full of sweat as he panted heavily as he sat heavily on the ground. His black short shirt was already soaked in sweat. Yi Ching Luo walked over quickly as she looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's face wasn't as pale as before. His breathing had also calmed down. His furrowed brows from the pain and the uncontrollable coughing had also been smoothed out. Seeing Yi Ching Luo looking at him, Gu Jingyu gave a gentle smile as he slowly shook his head. I feel much better now. It should be because the Gu has been cured. Yi Ching Luo was assured as she glanced sideways at third Elder Meow. Met with her gaze, third Elder Meow instinctively crawled back a few steps. He had deeply experienced Yi Ching Luo's boldness and methods. As long as he could live on, he didn't need any integrity. His Gu. Gu, I've already cured it. Quickly give me the antidote. Third Elder Meow's voice was still trembling. Yi Ching Luo's pink lips curled as she raised her index finger and shook it at him. No hurry. Third Elder Meow's face turned pale. What else do you want to do? Also, use your Meow tribe's most vicious method. Promise that you will never harass the Boo family village again. Yi Ching Luo said calmly. His casual tone almost caused third Elder Meow's throat to taste a fishy sweetness, and he almost spat out blood. He suppressed his anger as he gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. All right, I promise. He was about to raise his finger as he made a perfunctory vow, but was stopped by Yi Ching Luo's hand. Third Elder Meow frowned impatiently. What on earth are you? Before he could finish his words, third Elder Meow saw Yi Ching Luo barehandedly grabbing a tribesman from among those Meow tribesmen. The Meow tribe's most venomous oath, or perhaps curse. If third Elder Meow isn't using the Meow tribe's venomous oath, then I'll let you personally experience what a venomous oath is. Yi Ching Luo's threatening voice rang beside his ear. That Meow tribesman almost cried from fright. His body trembled as he met third Elder Meow's warning glare. The Meow tribesman froze. In the next instant, a soft hand gently rested on his shoulder. Beside his ear, the girl's clear and cold voice said, You have to think about it carefully. I'm not someone you can casually threaten. The Meow tribesman did not know if he had fallen for the honey trap. He was still awed by Yi Qing Luo's boldness. He nodded repeatedly. I don't dare to hide anything. I will tell you the truth. Third Elder Miao stomped his feet in anger. His vicious gaze landed on the tribesman, but Yi Qing Luo directly rebutted. Why? Looking at Third Elder Miao's expression, it seemed that he didn't want to swear according to my request. Since that's the case, then I'll... No, how could that be? I'll swear right now, according to the Miao tribe's most venomous method. Third Elder Miao immediately opened his mouth as he speedily bit his finger and took out a strange, shaped goo worm. Following that, according to the Miao tribe's method, he gave his promise in front of everyone. Chapter 2430. Third Elder Miao's hand, which was holding on to that goo worm, paused as he raised his head abruptly. You can't do this. Not only could he not find trouble with the Bu family village, he still had to protect the Bu family village from other troubles. This meant that his plan to use other channels to slaughter the Bu family village had been blocked. This slut, why did she seem to be able to guess what he was thinking about? Yi Qing Luo only smiled at him. She didn't say anything. Her smile was sweet, but it made that not breathtaking and could only be described as elegant, revealing a bit of enchanting look. But in Third Elder Miao's heart, a surge of terror and fear arose. He trembled slightly as he looked at that extremely faint smile. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and spat out a few words. Fine! Count it on me. Yi Qing Luo nodded in satisfaction. Now, can you give me the antidote? There was a poison in his body which he couldn't detect. Third Elder Miao was extremely terrified and frightened, afraid that he would become like Yuan Kuang, and afraid that he would end up like Miao Rongrong, choosing to go into closed-door cultivation to detoxify. Yi Qing Luo raised her finger and shook it. Third Elder Miao shut his eyes tightly, already used to Yi Qing Luo going back on her words. Tell me your request clearly. I just want to find out something from you. Yi Qing Luo walked to the stone table and sat down. Let's sit down and talk slowly. Third Elder Miao's legs were wobbly. How would he dare to move? Yi Qing Luo didn't force him to sit down. Instead, he poured a cup of tea for Gu Jingyu and a cup for himself. Her actions were leisurely. Every action affected the hearts of the Miao people, following Yi Qing Luo's actions. Third Elder Miao felt that he had aged by more than 10 years today. After Yi Qing Luo finished pouring the tea, she opened her mouth slowly. Who is the person you're looking for in the Bu family village? Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. This is the Miao family's internal affairs, but it involves the Bu family village. Then it's not an internal affair. Yi Qing Luo sneered. Third Elder Miao averted his gaze. Other than this matter, I can tell you everything else that I know. What I want to know is this matter. Yi Qing Luo didn't give in at all and was overbearing. She knew that the person the Miao tribe was looking for must be the internal affairs of the Miao tribe and also the Miao tribe's secret. Otherwise, with the status of the Miao tribe in the Northern Waves continent, they wouldn't be able to survive. They could totally search for the person the Miao people were looking for, just like how Battle King General searched for her. Third Elder Miao's expression turned ugly. He knew clearly how difficult it was to deal with Yi Qing Luo, but he had not expected Yi Qing Luo to be so difficult to deal with. The person that the Miao tribe was looking for was related to the future development of the Miao tribe. If this girl found out, it would definitely destroy the peace of the Miao tribe. This kind of demon must not be allowed to set her target on the Miao tribe. Third Elder Miao would rather die than submit, huh? Yi Qing Luo laughed in ridicule. It's rare that Third Elder Miao has such backbone. Then I shall fulfill Third Elder Miao's wish to sacrifice myself to protect the Miao tribe's secret. Saying that, she put down the teacup in her hands, stood up and said to Gu Jingyu, Master Gu, let's go. Gu Jingyu had regained his energy by now. Even his complexion was back to normal. Hearing Yi Qingluo's words, he cooperated and stood up, following behind her. The two of them had barely walked a few steps. Chapter 2431. Young lady? The Miao people were looking for a 14-year-old young lady. Why must she be 14 years old? A 14-year-old young lady can be found anywhere. Why must they run over to the Bu family village, which is filled with old grandpas and aunties? Yi Qingluo voiced out her doubts. Third Elder Miao's gaze was wavering. On his face, it was obvious that he was struggling, as though he was hesitating if he should say these things out. But he recalled what Yi Qingluo said, that his patience was not good. He was worried that Yi Qingluo would get impatient. In the end, he was defeated by the fear of death. It's not that a 14-year-old young lady can do it, but... Third Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly as his gaze turned towards those Miao people who were tied up. In his eyes, a sliver of murderous intent was fleeting. Following that, Third Elder Miao raised his head as though he had made his final decision. He looked at Yi Qingluo without blinking. That 14-year-old young lady is the Miao tribe's traitor. According to the clues provided by the Miao tribe, after that traitor escaped from the Miao tribe, she hid in the Bu family village. After that, there was no more news of that traitor. So, that traitor's clues must be related to the Bu family village. When Third Elder Miao said this, he paused slightly. Since she's a traitor, why did you only come to the Bu family village to investigate? If she's really a traitor, wouldn't the Miao tribe have already asked the royal family or the Qingyue sect to step out? Yi Qingluo's smile rose slightly as she looked at Third Elder Miao with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. I don't like to beat around the bush. Third Elder Miao better say it in the most straightforward way. Seeing her smile, Third Elder Miao's face turned black as he immediately said, "That young lady is indeed a traitor. She stole our Miao tribe's most sacred ancient gu worm." Ancient gu worm? Yi Qingluo remembered that it was written in the information that Peach had given her. Ancient gu worm, that was the symbol of the Miao tribe. It was actually stolen. That traitor used the ancient gu worm and hid in the Bu family village. After that, we lost all contact. Even the Miao tribe's witchcraft has no way to trace that traitor's whereabouts. Third Elder Miao said, "The matter of the ancient gu worm being stolen must not be spread at such a crucial juncture like the Saintess selection. Otherwise, the Miao clansmen will definitely panic. Therefore, the higher-ups gave me a private order to go to the Bu family village to find that traitor and retrieve the ancient gu worm. But the villagers said that they don't know who the person you're looking for is. In this village, if a 14-year-old young lady really came, how could they not remember?" Yi Qingluo raised her doubts. This, I don't know either. The order I received was to force that traitor to show himself in the Bu family village." The third elder shook his head hurriedly. "It's not that I'm hiding anything, but although we are elders, we don't have any real power in the Miao tribe. Most of the internal affairs of the Miao tribe, especially those related to the future of the Miao tribe, the Miao tribe wouldn't let me know too much." These words were not false. Yi Qingluo frowned slightly. "Do you know who that traitor is?" Chapter 2432. Yi Qingluo nodded thoughtfully. Third Elder Miao could not wait any longer. The fear and uneasiness in his heart rose to the peak. "I've told you everything. I've done everything you asked of me. Now give me the antidote." "Antidote?" Yi Qingluo raised her brows. Third Elder Miao was so anxious that his entire face was twisted into a ball. "Little ancestor, I really told you everything. Hurry up and give me the antidote. Can you please?" The more anxious he was. Third Elder Miao felt waves of intense pain in his abdomen. He was extremely flustered. Thinking of Yuan Kuang's tragic state, he almost cried. The smile on Yi Qing Luo's face gradually enlarged in third Elder Miao's pupils. She chuckled and said, "What antidote? You really believed it?" Third Elder Miao stopped crying. For a moment, he could not wrap his head around it. Yi Qing Luo covered her mouth as she burst out laughing. Third Elder Miao, I merely fed you it's just a pill which helps in detoxifying your body. Just squat in the latrine for 1 or 2 days, and you'll be fine. You. Third Elder Miao's heart was filled with fear and unease. At this moment, he was actually told that it was just a joke, and he was in this joke. He allowed Yi Qing Luo to knead him as he obediently answered all of her questions. You still have the energy to settle accounts with me? Yi Qing Luo smiled as she pointed at Third Elder Miao's tummy. Be careful. Don't drop it on your pants. Ugh. Third Elder Miao indeed didn't have the energy to settle the scores with Yi Qing Luo. His stomach rumbled like an avalanche. Unable to bear it any longer, he pointed his finger at Yi Qing Luo forcefully in the air. Then he hugged his stomach and quickly fled. The remaining 50-odd Miao people were all abandoned here by Third Elder Miao. You really just gave it to him. Gu Jingyu looked at Third Elder Miao's expression and could not help but laugh. He had never expected this. Yi Qing Luo actually used the medicinal pills made from croton as poison to coax Third Elder Miao. This was a psychological battle. Yi Qing Luo had obtained a complete victory. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she shrugged her shoulders. He's so gullible. I'm also very helpless. The smile on Gu Jingyu's lips became increasingly gentle. But Yi Qing Luo didn't appreciate his warm smile. Instead, he walked directly to Elder Ti and said, The Miao people will not come to the Bu family village to harass you anymore, and Third Elder Miao will protect the safety of the Bu family village. You can rest assured. Old-time Ti was in a trance. Even when Yi Qing Luo was talking to him, he didn't really understand. He just casually replied with a his eyes staring ahead without any focus. The villagers behind him expressed their gratitude one after another. Yi Qing Luo responded with a smile. He followed Elder Ti's gaze and looked over. He saw the Miao tribesman frozen on the spot, unable to move. She gently patted Elder Ti's hand and smiled. These Miao people are used to following the third elder and doing evil. They have also bullied the Bu family village many times. Now they are meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. If you want to take revenge, Elder Ti was stunned. The villagers behind him who were expressing their gratitude were also stunned. Kill those Miao people? Seek revenge for their Bu family village's dead villagers? Seek revenge for the humiliation they had suffered in the hands of the Miao people? Chapter 2433. Yi Qing Luo saw the expressions of the villagers. She curled her lips slightly as her voice became gentle. Of course, all of this depends on your own thoughts. The villagers looked at those Miao people. Then they looked at the surrounding villagers. After a while, an old villager in his 60s suddenly picked up his hoe and rushed over. Why didn't you kill them? They're not good people. They killed the innocent and bullied us. A villager rushed up. The other villagers couldn't hold it in any longer. They all carried their hoes and followed him. There were still some villagers who were filled with apprehension as they stood on the spot, hesitating and uneasy. Those indignant villagers, they were all in the past. The villagers who almost lost their lives in the hands of the Miao people. And quite a number of their loved ones had died in the hands of the Miao people. To the Miao people, how could these villagers not hate them? 10 over villagers raised their hoes and hit one of the Miao people with all their might. Those Miao people were firmly restrained by the silver wires and had no way to resist or evade. They bore the pain of the villagers, hoes smashing onto their bodies. The villagers vented the anger in their hearts. But just as one of the villagers was about to smash the head of one of the Miao people with his hoe, that villager was unable to make his move. The rest of the villagers also stopped their actions of punching the Meow people. They looked towards that villager. That villager raised his hoe up high as his entire body tensed up and turned stiff. After some time, that villager suddenly let out a sorrowful and indignant howl. "Ah, ah, ah, ah." He used strength and threw the hoe in his hand onto the ground. His wrinkled face was filled with tears. "I can't do it. I can't do it. They are all living people. If I were to avenge my loved ones who died in their hands and kill them, then what's the difference between me and them?" No matter how much hatred and resentment, the villagers still couldn't kill them. The rest of the villagers were the same. They only wanted to beat the Meow people up to vent the pain and anger from being bullied for such a long time. But they had never thought of killing them. One by one, the villagers threw down the hoes in their hands. "Forget it. Little girl, you've already taught Third Elder Meow a lesson on our behalf. And you've also made Third Elder Meow swear a poison oath. That's enough." The villager, who was the first to rush up, smashed his hoe on the ground. "Just leave them here and let them fend for themselves." The villager's choice could be said to be within Yi Ching Luo's expectations. The villagers were kind to begin with. They were just ordinary people. How could they be like the Meow people or other Xian practitioners, viewing human lives as worthless? Just as you said, leave them here. Whether they live or die will depend on their luck. Yi Ching Luo smiled faintly as she didn't persuade the villagers to harden their hearts and kill these Meow people to get rid of all future troubles. Anyway, this group of Meow people. However, he had seen Third Elder Meow's sorry state and humiliation today. Furthermore, he had personally witnessed Third Elder Meow betraying the Meow tribe. How could the Third Elder of the Meow tribe possibly let them live and return to the Meow tribe? These people would die sooner or later. So don't let these Meow people who were worse than beasts disturb the hearts of the Bu family village villagers. Chapter 2434. Yi Ching Luo turned her head back and saw Elder T hugging the things in his arms tightly. The expression on his face was extremely solemn. Yi Ching Luo was stunned for a moment and smiled. "All right." Elder T walked straight to the small wooden house next to the tea shed. Just as he stepped one foot in, he suddenly thought of something and paused again. He looked at Gu Jingyu, who was treating the injured muscles and bones of the villagers who were kicked by the Meow tribesmen. "Young master, please wait here for a while," Elder T said apologetically. Gu Jingyu raised his head and revealed a warm smile as he shook his head. "No problem, I'll wait for you here." Elder T walked into the wooden house. Yi Ching Luo took a look at Gu Jingyu and looked at those injured villagers. She took out a few bottles of medicine for external injuries from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Gu Jingyu. "Sorry to trouble you." Her clear and gentle voice was as elegant as water. In an instant, it made his heart jump uncontrollably. He stretched out his hand and received the medicine bottle from Yi Ching Luo. Their fingers touched. Gu Jingyu's face floated a tinge of red. He quickly received the medicine bottle and turned around, looking at the villagers in front of him. Yi Ching Luo had no feelings for Gu Jingyu. Naturally, she didn't notice Gu Jingyu's emotions. She totally didn't notice that Gu Jingyu had a different feeling towards her. After Yi Ching Luo gave him the medicine, she directly walked into Elder T's wooden house. She just walked in. The wooden door behind her was shut tightly. Elder T walked to the table with a solemn face and placed those little things and paintings on the table. "Young lady, although this is the first time we met, but I believe you. You are a kind-hearted good lady." Elder T said seriously, "So this matter? I'm only telling you alone." Yi Ching Luo sat by the side, and from Elder T's words, she heard some deeper meaning. "What you want to say is related to that Meow tribe traitor which Third Elder Meow mentioned?" Elder T's expression revealed an obvious astonishment. After some time he nodded, yes. Third elder Meow said, "The young lady reached Bu family village and disappeared. Do you know who that young lady is?" Yi Qing Luo's interest was piqued as she placed both hands on the table and asked him seriously. Meow tribe's matter. She actually didn't have any intention of getting involved. But her purpose in coming to the Northern Wave continent was to take away the person with the best goose skill in the Meow tribe and bring him back to the West continent. Meow Rongrong's personality. Even if she was in the palm of her hand, Yi Qing Luo still doubted Meow Rongrong's ability. And this, he made the entire Meow tribe search for the young girl with the ancient goo worm. Perhaps he could also help her. Most importantly, she had made Meow Rongrong look like that. With Meow Rongrong's personality, she would definitely not let the matter rest. Rather than waiting for Meow Rongrong to cause trouble for her, it would be better to think of a way to stop Meow Rongrong from finding trouble with her. So, the matter of the Meow tribe searching for this young girl, she was determined to take care of it. Actually, the Meow people kept coming to the Bu family village to look for someone. At first, I really didn't know who they were looking for because the Bu family village had never seen such a young girl. They were passing by the Bu family village. Most of them were married women. She followed her husband to the holy spring to pray for a child. However, when third elder Meow mentioned hiding in the Bu family village with an ancient goo worm, I thought of someone. Chapter 2435. Young lad? Third elder Meow said it was a young lady, but the one who brought the goo worm was a young lad? Third elder Meow was such a timid person. He wouldn't dare to lie to her at that critical juncture. It was even more impossible for Elder T to lie to her. Could it be that young lady in order to avoid the Meow people's pursuit? So, she deliberately disguised as a man to confuse them? That young lad is a very intelligent and quick-witted person, and my wife, son, and daughter-in-law liked him very much. He paused, as though he was recalling the past. My grandchildren are brothers with that young lad, and their relationship is very close. I also treated him as my second grandson. Then why? Did she only stay in the Bu family village for half a month? Yi Qing Luo could tell that Elder T really liked that young lad. Elder T shook his head. That day he left in a hurry and only had time to say goodbye to us before he left in a hurry. After that, I have never seen him again. Speaking of this, Elder T suddenly recalled something. When he came to say goodbye, my wife couldn't bear to let him go. He said, he must leave, otherwise the Bu family village will be destroyed because of him. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. In her mind, a light flashed past. She seemed to have thought of something as her lips curled into a faint smile. When did Grandma Bu leave the village? About 7 to 8 days after that young lad left the village. The Meow people who were originally circling around the Bu family village directly rushed to the Bu family village, wantonly plundering their resources, humiliating the villagers. Elder T's fist clenched tightly. Towards the Meow people, he had always harbored hatred. The Meow people came once every 3 days, became once every 2 days, and after that, they came every day to create trouble. The young villagers couldn't stand it, so they brought their families and fled to the big city. At that time, my son and daughter-in-law also escaped. The two of them brought their 2 children and headed to Chinua City, thinking that after they had settled down in Chinua City, they would come to the Bu family village to fetch us. But after waiting for a month, an entire month, those villagers who fled to the big city all went missing. My son, my daughter-in-law all went missing. Elder T's voice was choked with emotion. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk a little. The people of the Meow tribe were certain that the person they were searching for was in the Bu family village. How could they let the villagers of the Bu family village leave? Those villagers who had formed teams to escape to the big city. There was no more news. It was highly possible that he had been killed by the Meow people. This was only Yi Qing Luo's guess. Naturally, she wouldn't say it out loud. After all, The villagers here all had the thought of fleeing to the big city with their sons and daughters. They had been supporting themselves and staying in the Boo family village to wait for their loved ones. Moreover, Yi Ching Luo still had some doubts in her heart. Back then, when old T's son and daughter-in-law fled the Boo family village with their children, if he was really killed by the Miao people, then how could Grandma Boo's grandson and granddaughter be killed by Yuan Kuang in Happy Heart City? I guess it was just a guess. We couldn't get any news from our family, so this old woman secretly left the Boo family village and went to Chinua City to look for our son. Until now, one by one, they had all lost contact. Elder T was actually a little panicked, but he always looked on the bright side. Chapter 2436. If third Elder Miao hadn't mentioned the ancient goo worm just now, I might not have connected the young lady that the Miao people were searching for with that young man. Elder T sighed. When he first came to my house, he was covered in wounds. He held a fist-sized bug in his arms like it was a treasure. I had never thought that it would be the Miao tribe's goo worm. The young lad also said that the worm was the only thing that his mother left for him. In that case, the person that the Miao people were looking for should be the young man that old time T mentioned. And the Miao people said that it was a 14-year-old girl. In that case, her previous guess of a woman disguised as a man was established. Little girl, I will only tell you about this matter. If you have the chance, you can find that little fellow. Cough, little girl. Tell her not to return to the Boo family village, and don't think about coming to the Boo family village to see me. Elder T said what was on her mind and suddenly felt much more relaxed. From the moment third Elder Miao mentioned the symbol of the person he was looking for, his heart had always been on tenterhooks. Third Elder Miao spoke. The more certain he was. The person the Miao people were looking for was the young lad who had stayed in his house for half a month. Tell this little girl these secrets. It wasn't just because the little girl had saved the Boo family village, but he believed if it was this little girl would definitely help the young man. Yi Ching Luo was stunned. Don't you blame her for disturbing the peace of the Boo family village? If it wasn't for her, the Miao people wouldn't have harassed the Boo family village. Elder T, on the other hand, cracked a smile. It was a kind and warm smile. She once brought our Boo family village precious joy. In my heart, I've long regarded her as family, so how could I blame her? Elder T's words warmed Yi Ching Luo's heart. The simple Boo family village. The villagers were simple and honest. Fortunately, she had come to the Boo family village today. She protected the Boo family. Only then did he not let these kind and gentle people get hurt. Yi Ching Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly. Her smile was extremely gentle. If I see her, I will help her. After hearing Yi Ching Luo's words, Elder T's solemn expression finally relaxed. He sighed heavily, and a guilty expression appeared on his face. I'm sorry I used your kindness, but other than you, I don't know who else to tell the secret to. Yi Ching Luo gently curved her pink lips. It's not considered as using. Actually, if the person you're talking about is really the young girl that third Elder Miao mentioned, then I have my reasons for looking for her. Elder T didn't care what Yi Ching Luo's motive was. He still smiled. You can protect her for me. The two of them exchanged a few more words. Outside the door, the sound of the villagers shouting for food could be heard. Only then did the two walk out of the wooden house. The tea shed was already filled with plate after plate of dishes. Although it didn't look beautiful, it made people feel warm. The villagers took advantage of the time when she was talking to Elder T and Gu Jingyu was treating the injured. The dishes were specially made by him. It was already made from the best materials in the Boo family village. Yi Ching Luo's lips curled into a smile as she followed the villagers to their seats. This meal, Yi Ching Luo ate extremely comfortably. After the meal, Yi Ching Luo bade farewell to the villagers and prepared to leave. If she didn't return, Chapter 2437. Furthermore, she should go back to settle the matters at the Battle King's residence. The injured villagers were all bandaged up. They would be back to normal after a few days of recuperation. Those Miao tribesmen who were restrained by the silver wires. Yi Qing Luo was prepared to bring them to that small forest. Under the grateful gazes of the villagers, the two of them were sent to the village entrance. Yi Qing Luo halted her footsteps as she looked at Elder T. "Old Grandpa, you really don't intend to go to Qinghua City?" Elder T lowered his head as he shook his head, slowly. "Not going. If it's possible, help me pass this letter to this old woman." He took out a crumpled letter from his bosom. Apparently, it wasn't just written. It was a letter which he had written for a long time. Yi Qing Luo received the letter and kept it solemnly. "I will definitely pass the letter to her." On the way back to Qinghua City, Gu Jingyu had been trying to find a topic as he tried to find out about Yi Qing Luo's news. On account that Gu Jingyu had suffered from Third Elder Miao's venom in order to save her, Yi Qing Luo replied to a few simple questions. But towards the end, Gu Jingyu had already asked about her family's situation. Yi Qing Luo finally sensed that something was amiss. Although her EQ wasn't considered high, but if she didn't sense wrongly, this Gufeng sect's young matriarch seemed to be interested in her, inquiring about her family's situation. Was he intending to propose marriage? This thought made Yi Qing Luo felt as though she was struck by lightning. It should be. She was too narcissistic. After all, the face she had changed was not considered as a great beauty. With Gu Jingyu's status as a young matriarch, he should have seen all kinds of beauties. Cough. Yi Qing Luo cleared her throat as she stopped in her tracks. Gu Jingyu, who was inquiring about Yi Qing Luo's family situation, also stopped in his tracks as he looked at her warmly. That gaze seemed as though he could only tolerate her alone in this world. Yi Qing Luo shuddered. That young matriarch Gu. "Can I ask you a question?" Gu Jingyu's eyes brightened slightly, and the smile on his face was tinged with a hint of joy. "I asked you so many questions, so you can naturally ask me back." "Are you," Yi Qing Luo deliberated over her words, "interested in me?" Gu Jingyu's smile froze, and a suspicious blush appeared on his face. He frantically shifted his gaze away, not daring to look at Yi Qing Luo. He seemed to have not expected that she would expose his thoughts so straightforwardly. Gu Jingyu's expression made Yi Qing Luo feel that there was nothing left to live for. Oh no, oh no. This was obviously true. She had hit the nail on the head. She had already changed her appearance. Yet she could still attract the attention of men. Could it be that her charisma was that strong? Yi Qing Luo scratched the back of her head. "If you're really interested in me, it's better to dispel this idea as soon as possible." "Why?" Gu Jingyu raised his head abruptly as his thin lips pursed slightly. "Miss Yi, although I'm Gufeng sect's young matriarch, but I'm not the same as those hedonistic sons." He anxiously tried to explain himself as his face bore a rare, serious look. "My background is clean, and I don't have any other women by my side. Moreover, I've always felt that true love and liking should only be given to one person. If you're able to be with me, I promise you I will absolutely not take in concubines." Cough, cough, cough. Yi Qing Luo was so frightened that she started coughing violently.